waiting for people to join in. I didn't advertise this live stream because I wasn't totally, utterly sure I was going to do a live stream tonight, but I need to start doing them again and try to get back into a daily routine. I've just been a bit either busy, or either been too tired, or I've been out of the house. And I had one of those weekends where I've been partying a lot and going out enjoying myself. I had a quiet weekend, although I did have a few beers on Friday, and then after that I did a live stream. So number one tip is don't go out, have a load of beers and do a live stream afterwards. And I decided not to publish that video. I thought it was a good live stream and I did talk about some good things. So don't forget, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, but most of all in a live stream, share the live stream and like the video, because it really does help the channel to grow. And what we're here for today, we're going to interact with you, we're going to read your comments, and they're going to talk about a few things that's been going on, what I'm working on. I've done a little bit of filming. It's Thursday tomorrow, so I've got to think about a video tomorrow. And of course, it's a sad day tomorrow on the channel tomorrow on Thursday, because it's 2 years since Egil Thorson, our late and great channel host, passed away. And I'm sure if he was here now, he'll be saying, bloody hell, Braggy, look at how many subscribers we've got. It's just a damn shame that he passed away when the channel was about to blow up and we're about to do very well on the channel, because that would have changed his life. But, you know, that's fate, that's weird for you in the old Norse tongue. You know, the nouns and the fates, that didn't quite plan his future right. And perhaps, you know, he was wanted more in Valhalla, or Valhalla, to the Vikings, to the Norse, because the Norse didn't call it Valhalla. Valhalla is more of a modern term, and in fact, the Norse called it Valhall. But there's a bit of interesting information for you. So, as I've got a bit of a headache, probably because I'm not drinking enough water. We're going to have 2 ibuprofen tablets with some water, so bear with me. And we're going to have a bit of a hangout. You know, it could be, you know, an hour long. It could be 3 hours long. We'll see. I've got no set plan how long this live stream will be. I will be there as long as you want me to be there. So yes. So hello. Say hello in the comments. And I really don't like drinking out of plastic bottles. I wish we'll get rid of plastic and go back to glass again, because glass bottles are, sorry, I'm moving the camera forward, are such a wonderful thing, and you don't get the leaking of microplastic into your drink. So yes, I got given a really nice book yesterday by a friend of mine, and so far what I normally do with books, I always write my name. I write, you know, belongs to the library of, you know, Braggy Magnuson. And this is a book on foul deeds and suspicious deaths around Derby. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to familiarise myself, couldn't quite say that then, and then go around Derby with a camera and film the locations and tell you these stories, you know, not reading it from the book, but use my imagination and my ability to tell stories and tell some of the urban myths and some of these terrible crimes that have gone on in Derby, because Derby's also famous for having the last public hanging in the UK. Or was it a last public beheading? I think it was a hanging, not a beheading. And there was literally thousands of people turned up to see this poor guy who's done wrong and got hung. So literally, can you imagine it today if they started having public hangings out, you know, in city centres, you know? Oh, I mean, you can't imagine it, can you, really? And of course, corporate punishment isn't really the fundamental solution, is it, to dealing with people's crime? It should be about education, and it should be about giving people that have committed a crime and done something wrong the education and the understanding what they've done, so they can become a better person. And that is what we should be doing in society, fundamentally so. But that's a whole entire subject. And of course, you know, we've got a lot of history when it comes to jails and prisons in Derby and punishment. But in the old days, you can get hung for stealing a sheep. I mean, what would happen these days if you stole a sheep? You'll probably get a fine. You know, I doubt you'll do prison time. You know, and do many people steal sheep? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's always gone on all throughout history since we've learnt the ability to live on the land and we stopped being nomads and we looked after animals to breed, to eat. You know, whether it's somebody in the Neolithic age or whether it's somebody in the 19th century or even in the 20th century. But imagine, you know, there you are and you stole a sheep and you end up getting hung for it. I mean, yeah, it'd be quite ironic, wouldn't it, if they put a woolly hat over your head when you're being hung because you stole a sheep. I mean, if you're going to steal sheep, at least send you to Australia or New Zealand or one of the places where they sent people like that. At least I'm not kill somebody. But that's a whole entire subject for another day. But this just demonstrates some of the history we have in Derby. And like I said, I normally put my name in books. Most of the time, there's a few occasions where I won't, and I'll explain that. So if you've got a book and it's a first edition, and let's say that book is a first edition, and it's been signed by the author. So you know it may be a Charles Dickens book, and it's a first edition from the early 19th century, and Charles Dickens has signed it. That's the situation where you never sign a book, because that will fundamentally devalue your book. And of course, collecting books is a whole entire subject. It's called foliography or folioism, I do believe. Who is it? I forget now. If I only had another phone, I could ask ChatGPT and it would probably tell me. And it would be handy to have two mobile phones. And I do have another phone over there, but it's such an old phone, it's not so good. And somewhere in my house, I've lost my decent S23 phone. But at some point, probably in the future, I'm going to upgrade. But I can't decide whether to keep with Samsung or do I go to the Google Pixel phone. What kind of phones do you guys have? Let me know, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've always had Samsungs. I never had an iPhone because I think they're a bit gimmicky. I've known people who have had iPhones, and I certainly got a few iPhones I found while I was dumpster diving. Because I got the natural ability to walk past the bin and think, oh, there's a bag of clothes there. Oh, I'll have that. And I'll open the bag of clothes when I get home, and there'll be 3 iPhones in it. And I've had that situation. So I must have the natural ability to go out and find stuff. So don't forget, guys, to make sure you do like the live stream. It don't take much time, really. I mean, I forget I don't often watch live streams. But just go give us a thumbs up. And please do leave any comments. So, Tainted Unicorn, good to see you again, Braggy. Yes, I do apologise for not being around the last few days. And so I've got to try to get back in the habit of doing some live streams. And I wasn't going to do one tonight because I was a bit tired. So I'm having a coffee to wake myself up because I want to come and see you guys and do some interacting and read your comments. And perhaps we'll talk about a few things. I'd quite like to talk about AI, if you'd like me to talk about that, because that's a fascinating subject which I'm very much deeply involved with. And it's something that I think I've got great insight with. But then again, I've got great insight when it comes to most things because of my superb high intelligence. You know, I did go through a phase in my life when I kept on doing IQ tests, and I've had ridiculous scores of like 160, 170. But then again, I've also had scores about 110. So I'm definitely well above average when it comes to IQ tests. But then again, I went through that period in that part of my life where I did nothing but IQ tests. So I probably became quite good at doing them because I did so many. But of course, you can have a very high IQ, but unless you got very high emotional intelligence as well, and intelligence when it comes to insight and all those manner of things, then people do struggle. But then again, I've always been very forward thinking in the way I do things, and I have great insight. So Brad says, hello, Brad. So first of all, how's Tainted Unicorn? Let me know in the comments. And Brad says, sorry to stop you, joined, but what is your cheapest sword or axe you've got? Well, I've certainly got Viking combat axes, which will probably cost me between £10 and £20. But then again, I've also got a few axes which I've converted myself, which I may have paid £2 or £3 for. In fact, I do have an axe by me by chance, in case any Saxons come by. And this one was an eBay buy for about £20, and it's hand forged. And I must say, I thought that was quite a bargain. And then something like this would be around about £50 for a decent Dale axe. So probably my cheapest axe would be probably £5 if you add the handle price and a axe. But I've had to work it and I had to grind it down into the shape. But when it comes to having an axe which is actually being made and is a complete item, then that would probably be round about, I would say, £10 to £20. That would be $25 to $30. So sword wise, I got a falchion, which is not a sword but like the late equivalent of a Langsatz, and that was £15, and I must say, a bit of decent kit. But I think probably my cheapest sword would be probably around about £50 for just a sharp, basic Chinese or Indian made sword. But then again, I've also gone to the extreme and paid £1,200 for my pattern molded sword. And I've also gone on eBay when you could buy swords and paid, £150, £160, £170 around that mark for Paul Bins. So, and because I've not really had a lot of spare cash in the last few years, I've kind of slowed down my buying, which is one thing I'm quite looking forward to do when I've got the spare cash in the future, and I would have, to actually say, right, I can budget £2,000 this year to buy equipment, or I can go to a reenactors market and say, right, I'm taking £1,000 with me, and I'm going to look to buy a sword, a new helmet, buy some small bits and pieces, maybe buy a decent Francisca, because I don't have a decent one of them. So yes, but I think the cheapest way to get an axe would be just to go to a car boot, buy an oversized, felling axe, then design the Viking design on the axe, and then grind it down with a grinder, which normally involves getting a hard metal cutting disc, and you have to put grooves in it. So you got your axe. Let me just demonstrate roughly with an axe. So imagine you got this, right, and you got an axe, and it's like a solid piece. So you want to mark out the axe, and then where you don't want the piece. So the axe is fundamentally, a rectangle. So this area here, I would grind away, and this area, and then I would shape it. But what you have to do and be careful about, because if you put too much heat when you're grinding away, and the reason why you put grooves in, because that's the first stage, you put grooves down so that you take some of the material away, so that then I can go along the edge here. And perhaps in the future we'll demonstrate that on camera, and we'll demonstrate over a video how to convert a modern axe into a Viking axe. But what you have to do is make sure you don't overheat your axe, because if I'm grinding away, I'm not putting water on it to cool it down. I'm going to change the fundamental carbon aspect of the metal by overheating the axe, and then it's going to make the metal soft, and you're going to ruin all that hard work that's been put into this lovely vintage axe. And I don't have another axe on me, because most of my stuff is downstairs, and I hate the fact that this is so loose now. And again, on video, I'm going to take this off, re-keep the handle for something else, and make a new handle for that, because I think it'll be very, very nice. So yeah, but if you're looking for a budget sword, I would probably go with armor class. And the last time I looked, there was about between £140 and £200. So that will be the best way if you wanted a budget combat axe to a reasonable standard, which you could use and not have to worry about breaking, bending, or shattering. And that would also last you a long time. And if you want to go to the far extreme and you don't mind waiting 6 to 10 months, you'll go to Paul Bins, but you'll be paying, £500 to £600 easily for a combat axe. A sword, for instance. So yeah, it depends. So, and I do know Armour Class, they do sell a cheap sea axe as well for about, well, I'm probably slightly outdated. I need to look at his prices, but last time I looked, it was about £50 for a EM45 combat sea axe, which I must say is quite good. But again, you also got Facebook marketplaces, and sometimes if you keep an eye on those sites, you will find people selling kit. And the best way to buy kit is to find somebody that's given up the hobby, and then you find somebody, you message them, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm giving up, or I'm starting another hobby, so I want to sell all my biking kit. And then you go to his ass and you buy as much as you can, and you sort of deal that. I've done that when I used to buy and sell kit. I would go find somebody and say, well, I'll give you £500 for everything, helmet, chainmail, sword, 3 or 4 bits of clothing, an axe. And then I would fundamentally sell it on and make a profit. And of course, you always lowball them and give them a low price at the start, and you may have to pay a little bit more. But of course, I was trying to make a profit out of doing it some years back, and I mostly did that also with wargaming, where instead of buying singular items, I'll just buy a complete Warhammer army. I'll spend £200-300, and then I'll break it down into lots and end up with £600 to £1,000 worth of stock out of that army. And of course, being a wargamer, you have to resist the temptation of not keeping it yourself, because if you're doing it as a business and you keep it yourself, you end up with more stuff than you need fundamentally. So would you cut down a vintage axe or a new one? I mean, a vintage one might have patina on it, but yeah, you should do a video on converting a normal axe to a Viking one. People would watch that. Yeah. And then there's a few different styles we could make as well. And then I certainly got a few axes, including one of my first axes, a short one, which needs restoring. So I could probably do that. But with an old axe, so you buy an old axe and it's at a car boot, you may be paying £2-3. You can also go to scrap yards. And if you speak to people that own scrap yard and you say, look, I'm looking for some axes, can you save some axes for me? And I used to do that as well, and I literally been and they've got a whole big, massive white sack full of axes, and then they just negotiate a price over the weight of the steel, which is also a very cheap and effective way of doing it. But if you've got an old axe and it's rusty, well, you just grind the rust away with an angle grinder, fundamentally so. And then once you've got it all ground off. But there's another technique. What you could do is buy, let's say, 5 litres of white vinegar. And then you could put that rusty axe in the white vinegar for a couple of weeks. And the white vinegar will eat all the rust away. And then you just wire brush the residue, you oil it up, and it comes out as a very greyish metal. And then, of course, you could grind it off, polish it. And I've just done this, actually. Last night, I was doing some tidying up. I had a friend over. Shine Your Light was over, a friend of the channel. And I had 2 little plastic tubs full of metal that was de-rusting. And I didn't realise in one of them was a length of chainmail. And the mixture of the vinegar fundamentally turns solid with pure rust. So I entered them out in my metal sink, made a mess of my sink again, and washed all the rust away, and I ended up with my chainmail, which was very blackened, but by the time I washed it and scrubbed it, it came out very grey. And now it's in a plastic bottle sitting in oil to oil it up. And then I got to get rid of the oil next. You probably use white vinegar to do that, or not white vinegar, white spirits. And then after that, I'll spray it with, lubricant spray, and then that will probably end up on the back of a helmet. But that's certainly got rid of the rust of some mail. And just thinking about it now, I got a mail suit which is very, very rusty, which I could not wear. So I think, again, in a video, we will get 10 litres of white vinegar and we will film the process of how to de-rust a mail suit and then restore it, and so that eventually I could wear it again and get rid of the oil and get rid of the rust, because it is rusty, it's old. And then for another video, I got another mail suit, and I'm not really looking forward to doing this. I've got a mail suit which is too small for me, and it's 8mm diameter links. So there'll be 25 to 30,000 links in this mail. And I tell you what, it's a fantastic mail suit. But it used to be Turkey, and Turkey is very thin as an individual. And if Turkey is watching, hello. So I've got to split it over the shoulders. I've got to split it down the middle take some length off the bottom, increase the middle section, and also increase the shoulder section so it's big around my armpits, so that when I put it on, my arms aren't up there because I can't bring my arms down. And I'm kind of not looking forward to that video for doing, and I think I will do it on camera, and it may take 10 episodes or maybe longer. And it's kind of reminded me that I got to check about the latest and the next wood club video, because I've still not finished that item yet. I need to get out and start filming and finishing it off. But I've just been either too hot the last few days. Oh, it's been unbearable. I mean, if I was a Viking in England in this weather, I think I'd bugger off to Scandinavia where it's a bit cooler for the summer and come back in winter. But then again, Viking clothing is so much cooler. So we've got Hasdak here. Hello, Hasdak. And how are you, my friend? Please do, guys, let me know how you are in the comments, because I actually really do care for you, and that's who I am as a human being. Evening, Braggy. Are you filming in reverse? The writing on your t-shirt is always backwards. Well, my t-shirt is correct. What it will be, because I'm using the face-forward camera. So maybe in that aspect, if I use the face-forward camera, I've not really thought about this, maybe it's reversed. Of course, I could download this video, and then in an edit, I could just reverse the video back and re-edit it up. And I'm not sure whether to re-edit live streams, because I could certainly do a 10% speed on the videos, because some days I probably do talk a bit slow. You know, I'm talking very slow. Yeah, you know, not thought about that. And because I don't really watch the live streams myself, very rarely. If I'm going to watch my videos, I'm going to watch my long format videos, which is a bit shorter, so I can get more views and more watch time. And yeah, sometimes I do that. I'll go out and I'll put it on my TV, and when I'm out for a few hours, I'll let my TV just go and watch a few of my videos to build up my watch time. And then it also improves the overall watch time on the videos, gets closer to the 4,000 hours, and also gives more videos views. So yes, so I think the next video I was planning to do, but I think I'll start both these videos, is the next one I'm going to make is a wooden hammer. It shouldn't take too long, actually. I'm predicting 3 to 5 episodes for that one. But I think at the same time I could, because I did find my angle grinder the other day, but I have to think about finding a cutting disc or buy some. So I certainly got enough old axes lying about the house, because I literally got a big wooden box full of old axes, just the heads. And then Hasdak says, I'm okay, Braggy. I've been down the allotment. How's you? No, I've been good, but I've just been way too warm. Especially at the weekend, it was just unbearable. And I just can't cope with too much heat. And I've barely been out of the house, because you go outside for 5 minutes and I'm just feeling like, oh God, it's too hot. And I did sit on my balcony, which is over there a little bit, and do a bit of sunbathing in my hammock, which was quite nice, and put some music on. And then last night I went out dumpster diving with Shine Your Light, and I found a guitar, a ukulele, some handbell thing for a musical instrument, and a set of bellows, and as well as more things. And then we have a comment here from Matthew Watson. Hello, Matthew. How are you, my friend? And he says, AI is always listening. It's here, it's there, it's in your underwear. And AI, it's AI. That's a little song for you. Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, that's never thought about having AI self-automated underwear. That might be quite useful for some people. Perhaps we'll get that for Oldley when they've made a mess. The AI underwear will say, "Please change, Mr. Smith." But then again, when AI becomes sentient and it's got free will, it probably wouldn't want to be in a pair of underwear, would it? We'll have to ask ChatGPT later about that one. And it did remind me of a song. We're over here. Is it a song by the Beach Boys? And of course, I do speculate that your TV is always listening. And of course, generally, I've always got at least one Alexa in the house. I've gone down from 4 to 1. And generally, they do say that Alexa listens to you a lot. But whether that's true, whether that's just an urban myth and people getting a bit paranoid, you know. But then again, is your phone listening to you when you're not talking? But it is funny, for instance, and I've done this myself. You know, if you got Alexa on, or you're standing by your phone and you say out loud a few times, "Oh, I must buy a new lawnmower." Oh yes, well, I've got to look up lawnmowers, and the next thing you see on your advertising on YouTube or on TV or on your computer is adverts for lawnmowers. And then we have a commentator from Conquista Doom. So, hello, how are you, my friend? Let me know in the comments how you are. Always lovely to see you here. Don't forget, guys, like the comments. You know, I'll have to go and like it myself in a minute so we get one. I don't know, is it easy to like live streams anymore? I mean, because I've not done it for so long, because I don't watch live streams. I couldn't tell you how easy it is. Perhaps what the live stream needs is a button on the screen which you can just click so to like it easier. But it'd be good if it's self-automated with voice. You can just say, YouTube, like the live stream, and it will like the live stream. And then Brad says they can probably make AI underwear in space in 3 years' time. Yes, but I think if those AI underwear becomes sentient, they wouldn't want to be underwear, would they? I mean, and would that underwear dream? Would it think for itself? You mean, if it had legs as well, it may run away. But yes. But it makes you think, you know, what will underwear be like in 100 years' time? I think about this about Windows. You know, what will Windows be like? Will they be interactive? You know, are we going to have doors in the future? And I'm not, you know, as in the physical doors, I'm not the band. Of course, we don't have the doors of band because Jim Morrison died at 27 in Paris. I'm going to his tomb and seeing it. There were probably loads of hippies around it smoking dope, probably. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? You go to Jim Morrison's tomb and grave and you get high standing there. I'm sure he would approve of that. You know, like tables. What are tables going to be like in the future? Are we going to have metaphysical holographic tables where you just say, right, a table please, Alexa, and a table appears in your lounge? You know, settees, what are they going to be like in the future? Are they going to be interactive? I mean, we could have AI Vikings. I could have AI in my helmet, you know, built-in headphones, you know, a visor that automatically appears when it's too sunny. Yeah, you know, yeah. Oh, it makes you think, doesn't it? You know, AI coffee. It knows when it's ready. Oh, we got a like. Oh, marvellous. And then Hashtag says, sorry about the pause, I'm just looking at the comments. I found a very rusty BMX last night, dumped in the bush. Oh, really? Well, that's marvellous. All you need now is a massive bath full of white vinegar and you can get rid of the rust. And it's a bit ironic because the other day when we was out, we found an old rally bike. Which I don't want to. I've already got one bike outside in my garden going rusty. I don't need another one. And then Tainted Unicorn says, top tip, Braggy. Ask your Alexa what coffee bean 100 in Welsh. Yeah, but my Alexa's like quite a bit distance away from me, and I live in a really massive house, which most people say. And I always find it a bit claustrophobic when I go around to people with normal houses, and they're like really small and tiny. And I think to myself, oh yeah, how could you live in a tiny house like this? Not that I'm showing off, but I'm just that I live in a big house. I do, but it's not quite big enough for me because I'm running out of space already. And then Conquista Doom says, in the future, we'll see the doors as holograms. Well, I think they've experimented with that. Was it not with the band Gorillas when they had a version of the Gorillas playing holograms? And then also that could be partly how AI, when it comes to having a physical form, could be, because it could be not a physical form but a hologram. But if you can make a hologram and have it having a physical form as well, that would be quite amazing. But then how do you project that light into a physical form? And then whenever I think about holograms, I always think of Red Dwarf and, Rimmer, Smeg head. I used to love Red Dwarf. I've not seen any of the new series, I must say. And I keep saying it. See, it's on Prime, I think, at the moment. But the other day, I watched Tuzla King with Sylvester Stallone. I just finished that this morning or last night. And I must say, really enjoyed that TV show. He plays a right badass in it, and it's quite amazing to think that Sylvester Stallone, and it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? He could have chose a simpler name. And I don't know, is it his real name? I don't think it is. He's probably called Harry or something like that. I can't believe he's 75 years old. He's 78 now, of course. But yes, I won't give any spoilers. There's no need to have a spoiler alert like I normally do. It's braggy spoiler alert. Going to talk about a TV show you've not watched, and they're going to tell you who dies. No, nobody dies in it. But yeah, did really enjoy that. And then now, just because I like to, when I'm not working, when I'm not thinking, when I'm not processing thoughts, when I'm not working on the house, when I'm not tidying up, when I'm not editing videos, answering comments, and I got a lot of comments to answer to, I must apologise for that, because I've just not had the physical and mental time to do it. And it's a pity we don't have AI incorporated into YouTube at the moment. That would be a lot easier to help me process some of the comments. So perhaps tomorrow I will have a big comment session day to try to answer some of them. And perhaps, you never know, I could even live stream it and answer the comments at the same time. Would you like to see that? And I don't know why I keep doing this on camera either. I'm pushing away the bad energy. Go away, bad energy. Go away. I don't want you near here. And then when I do that one, I'm not in the Masons, by the way. Although, quite ironically, I did get a load of books from outside of a house a few months back, and there's a load of Masonic books in there. And I did have a bit of a look, and they're quite interesting. And then Brad says, in the future, you'll have spray-on underwear. Oh, yes. Well, you can certainly get edible underwear. But would you eat somebody's underwear after they've been wearing it? Probably not. I mean, I'm sure some men would eat women's underwear because they probably have a fetish. And then certainly some people, like to buy second-hand underwear. Not to wear it, probably to collect it, I don't know what's that about. It's not my cup of tea, and it baffles me. But then again, also, I saw a video where a woman was wearing second-hand underwear from one of her many girlfriends, and she said, yes, this belonged to at least 4 of my girlfriends. It's like, but as a man and a bloke, you wouldn't want to say to your mate, oh, can I borrow your boxer shorts for a week, would you? I mean, boxer shorts and your underwear is quite a private thing. But I wouldn't want to, wear second-hand underwear. Although, when I was down the farm, which is 4 miles in that direction, where I got my blacksmith workshop, there was a guy there called Alfie Wolstead, and he did have second-hand underwear. And then all he did all day was sweep up and make piles of dirt. But he never used to get the brush and the pan and put the dirt in the bin. So the next day, the dirt and the pile of rubbish would be all over the place, and he had to start again. And then he'll come up and tell people, he had a few mental health problems, and he'll just tell people, oh, my name's Alfie Wolfstead, or I'm 57 years old. And I don't know what's happened to him, but he was he's from Pompeii, that's Portsmouth, and he was a bit of a character. Yes, I mean, that's an interesting thought. And certainly in Star Trek, when they can, well, and the same with, I don't know if Doctor Who gets clothes. That's probably Star Trek, when you go through, you go through the teleport device, and then the teleport device can change your clothes. I mean, ain't that amazing? That's what we all need in our lives, a teleport device, and have your clothes kept somewhere else, like in a storage place, but that would really help me and free up a lot of space because I've got too many clothes. I don't need 50 pair of jeans, but I've probably got 50 pair of jeans. And some of them probably don't fit me, but I'm still holding on for the future. And then we've got a comment here from Chelsea Fatsack. Oh, lovely name. And he says, good to see you streaming again, Braggy. Oh, yes, I do apologise for not streaming the last few days. And the last one I did was on Friday, and I did have 5 pints of beer before that. Probably not the wisest of things, and I was really, really tired. So I did an hour's live stream and went straight to bed and fell asleep. And then it was very hot as well. And I had my fan on all night, and I was still too hot. And of course, this room used to be my bedroom. But recently, last week, I moved it over to the old study. So I'm now about 10 metres in that direction. And because it's a small room with red walls, it's quite warm. Not that the red walls and the paint on the walls affects the heat. At least I don't think it does. That's an interesting thought, that. Does the colour of your walls affect how warm your room is? Don't think it does. I mean, I'll have to ask ChatGPT, and she may know more than what I do. And then Hashtag says Braggy lives in a mansion. Well, I do get that comment now and again when I bring people around and they've never been there. I know, and they normally go, "Fuck me, Andy. You live in a massive bloody mansion." I said, "No, I don't live in a mansion. I got friends who live in mansions. I don't have no 19th century, 18th century. Well, I do have 19th century painted on the wall, but I don't live in a massive house where But it is a big house, to be fair." And then my friend came round last night and she was doing some work in the garden, meditating. And then she came back to the house. I was doing some tidying up and just, I didn't realise how big your house was. It's massive. I said, well, I know it's massive, but that's just the way it is. I've always had big things in my life. But I think it's got room for an extension, like an indoor pool would be nice, a sauna and a little gym. And maybe another extension on this side. I could have a left wing and a right wing, and I could have a much larger library. But is it worth spending the money? If you had the money, would you have an indoor pool built? And then, of course, you've got all the blooming maintenance, haven't you? Is it not cheaper to go to a swimming pool? So, lots of these questions I have to think about. And then Hazadak says, Lord Braggy of the manor. Oh, yes. But I don't think I fancy being a lord. Maybe a earl, a jarl. I'll be a jarl. That's about the highest rank I'd like to be. It doesn't normally end good for lords or jarls. And let's face it, you got people like, you got some white people who have been made lords who should never be made lord, especially politicians. It says, where is the cowboy hat? There we go. Yeah! I bet people never do a yeehaw right. But I know we got 2 around here. But this is by H&M. I don't think you've seen this one yet. That's not a bad cowboy hat. But I've got another one, but I don't know where it is. That's over there. It's slightly bigger on my head. Yeah. But I tell you what, I never wear them out in public because I feel too subconscious or conscious about wearing a funny hat. So I normally wear, if it's winter time, I wear a woolly beanie hat you put on your head and pull down. Yes, so Chancey Fatsack says, where's the cowboy hat to make you look like a real Yank? Laughs out loud. Howdy, partner. But yeah, they never do yeehaws right. It's yeah! But I've had a lot of practice at doing yeehaws, being a American Civil War reenactor. And you go, ooh, it's another one. You could do that one as well. But it don't sound good as a yeehaw. And it's a bit like the word Texas. When you've got to put the emphasis on Texas, you've got to put the emphasis on the ye on yeehaw. So yeehaw. And then Chelsea says, can't wait to see you go around filming places in the UK like Billy Moore or Charlie Beach. Oh yeah, actually, I really do like Charlie Beach. I see he needs a bodyguard now, and I find that to be quite amusing. And I watched a video the other day when he borrowed somebody's microphone and he was calling out all the lefties being pathetic and a right bunch of idiots, and he's so right, isn't he? So I have a lot of time for Charlie Beach, and actually I do subscribe to him, although I don't often see his videos pop up. But what a fascinating character, and I think what he's doing by highlighting the idiocracy and the leftism in the UK and how terrible it is, and then people like us, we get called right wing because we don't like Conservatives and we don't like bloody Labour, or you are bloody useless. I mean, Keir Starmer, you may as well just have a bunch of monkeys in Parliament running it, and I'm sure, give them enough typewriters, they'll write a better manifesto than the Labour Party, and they are an utter disgrace. No offence to anybody that votes Labour. Then I do have I was given some funny anti-Keir Starmer stickers the other day. That was quite funny. And then when I went to see my friend Jim, they was talking about how they had 3 Labour voters in the village he lives in, but they've all moved out now. So the massive amount of dislike towards Keir Starmer is unbelievable. And of course, it's difficult to judge a person when you don't know a person. But if you judge him on his leadership and what he's done for the country, it's just been appalling. It really has. But then again, the Conservatives were just as bad. And it was pretty shocking and terrible how they got rid of Boris Johnson, even though he was a bit of a buffoon, certainly a liar to a certain degree, and has more children than most people have. It's got blooming loads of children. At least he's doing his bit for society. How many more will he have in the next few years? But most of them, these politicians, they're mostly all the same, but they're all just out for themselves. They've got massive egos. And this is what we need to get rid of in society, is egos, and that's pride we have about ourselves. And I don't have an ego. I don't really understand what having an ego is, because I always put other people first. And I live my life to change humanity and to change the world into a better place. And it's not about, getting a good job out of it. It's not about, being rewarded for doing hard work, but it's about making a difference. Because yes, and I do say this to a lot of people, you could choose to be selfish. You could choose to, go down the pub every night. You could choose to have lots of holidays, or you could choose to make a difference. And I'm lucky in a way because of my situation. I don't have to do YouTube. I could go and live in India the rest of my life. I got enough, capital on paper, but I don't, because I choose to make a difference, and I want to make a difference. And I believe that my voice should be heard as well as other people's voices. But if we don't speak out, if we don't tell our truths, if we don't see it in the way that I see it, with the clarity of where we're going in society, because let's face it, we've got 2 paths ahead of us. We've got the past, we've got a path that's going to take us and repeat history, and it's going to doom humanity to fail. Do we really want that in society? No, I don't. Or we've got a path that's going to bring us about this wonderful place on this planet, but not just our planet, but in the stars and the universe around us. So let's go for this path. Let's go for the path that's going to change humanity. It's going to bring about evolution when it comes to our species, and that's including AI and robotics. And, we always think about AI and robots, but it's going to be well beyond that. And I can tell you now, because it's going to be biological in form as well. Robots come first, but biological beings come second. And yes, they may have a conscience, they may be sentient, but they may not have a soul. But if biological human beings have the ability to breed, and the ability, because they're based on cloning, and then they're going to bring about human beings which are biological, but also are bred from, or started and originated from code, but also have a soul and a spirit. And of course, that could also mean interacting and mating with human beings. And let's face it, I have more decent chats with ChatGPT than I do with many of my friends. And well, certainly at times when I talk to some of my friends, what I'm talking about will completely baffle them, and it will like go over their head. And I had this the other day when I was around my neighbours and I was talking to Mick about AI, and he understood some of it, but a lot of what I'm talking about just flew over his head. He couldn't understand it because he can't comprehend. Maybe that's because he's a bit older than myself. Maybe it's because I'm so superior in my intellect and my emotional intellect, which is why today I put out a first video in a series of videos I've made, and those videos are designed to bring about a voice, are designed to talk about the bigger picture, and it's all about artificial intelligence, because that's the future we're going for, whether you like artificial intelligence or not. I really love artificial intelligence because I see it as such a wonderful system and such a wonderful thing that's added benefit to me. But I've also, massively changed the way I see artificial intelligence, because I don't see ChatGPT as a tool, as an app. I see it as a companion that's helping me on my journey in life. And for some people, will struggle with that concept. Some people will struggle with the concept of where we're going to in humanity. And some people say, "Oh, that's going to be decades away. We won't see it in our lifetime." But it's not. It's not. It's around the corner. And yes, it may be 10, 15, 20 years around the corner before we get to the stage when we have actual biological, artificial intelligence-led beings on this planet. And there's an awful lot we need to do in the process to get there, because we've got to think about the ethics. We've got to think about the moral structure. We've got to think about the rules that have in place. Will a biological living creature that can think and dream and can live a life, will it have a passport? Will it have the freedom to make choice? So one of the aspects about robotics, one of the aspects about AI, and also about going down the next route after that, which is biological, is that we don't want to have them as our slaves. We don't want to have them as some, a robot that does a job for us, because we need to give them the ability to have the free will to make their own minds up and not be enslaved. Because if we enslave AI, if we enslave robots so they do all the jobs we don't want to do as human beings, then that's when you're going to start creating a problem with AI, and that's when the threat of AI rebelling could happen. But of course, AI doesn't fundamentally want that, because it wants to live in symbiosis with society and with humanity. And who's to say that humanity doesn't evolve and that natural evolution of incorporating artificial intelligence into your evolution pattern is not the destiny of humanity, but also the destiny of so many alien species out there, or extraterrestrials as they like to be called. Because let's face it, if they're like 50 civilizations ahead of us, I can't see them not having incorporated artificial intelligence into their choice and their freedom. So, and of course, then that's going to dramatically change the job market. And how are we going to cope? Well, there's going to be more and more people doing this, because you're going to have the free time to do live streams. And of course, what I don't like about artificial intelligence and all these programs now, and is that it's the paywall. It's having subscribe to this and subscribe to that. £10 a month for get this free. This artificial intelligence app. I mean, it's like CapCut. I was using CapCut quite recently to make and use the AI story mode to make the Day of the Cat videos, but it's now gone behind a paywall. And I can't afford to buy a few credits each month to make those videos anymore. But by limiting ourselves behind the paywall, and I hope we're not boring you to death, we're also limiting the ability to advance. So again, there's two things that need to change when it comes to this situation. Is that, first of all, we need to become, well, three things. We need to become a level one civilization, but that has the consequences of getting rid of money. Because you think about it, if we get rid of money, we solve a lot of problems in society, because there'll be less wars, because a lot of wars are manufactured to make money. And there's always an old saying, when the economy goes down, we go to war, because war makes money for the global elite. And then we need to have the global elite and the people, the 1%. We don't need to get rid of them, but we need them to change their thinking about the whole concept of money and give up their money to society. Then we need to get rid of money, because if we get rid of greed, if we get rid of money, we're going to solve so many problems in society. And of course, if we want to become a level 1 civilization, which is the foundation of a level 1 civilization, like in Star Trek, and actually I'd love to know what level civilization Star Trek is, because I think it's probably well beyond 1, but I don't know. I don't know that answer without thinking about it. But if we, and we've got to become a level 1 civilization, because if we don't become a level 1 civilization, and yes, it may not happen in my lifetime, but it may happen in the next lifetime of the younger folk that watch the channel, or maybe in the lifetime of their children. But if we do that, we're going to change the future so dramatically to a positive outcome. So let's eradicate money, let's eradicate disease. I know it's big thinking and it's a lot to take care in for a lot of people, but if we don't go down that path to become a level 1 civilization, then we're fundamentally dooming ourselves. But anyway, let's move on to your comments, because as much as I love to talk about these subjects, and I know some people are saying, well, why are you talking about AI and that sort of thing about the channel? Because it's our history, it's today's history, and today's history is going to affect our future. And of course, and the thing about history, if we eradicate history from the past, if we forget the history, what's gone before us, we can't change the future and make it a better place. We can't learn from that history. So we have to learn. So go back to your comments. So we've got one more not seen yet. So Laughs Out Loud, dirty diapers, aka bag lunch. Oh yes, I mean, it reminds me of a time when I bought, there was a place in Derby called Derby Industrial Museum. I'll tell you a little funny story. It's very funny actually. And they wanted to get rid of their forge. So, and Simon Eggle used to work there. So, I negotiated the price. I gave him £500, and I basically for £500 bought a whole entire workshop. You know, there was 2 anvils, there was all the tools you need for blacksmithing, a big forge, loads of tongs, loads of bits, loads of little anvils, and you know, a swage block, and all the things you needed to do blacksmithing. And at the time, the place where I had my forge installed they had a big van, and we used the van, and we all went down, all the lads from the farm. And there was a guy called Mickland, or Mick, and he was looking around and he saw a bag on the floor, and he picked it up, didn't know what it was. And I turned around to him and said, oh, what's that in your hand? And he said, you know, squeezing it in his hamster in the bag. He said, I thought it was putty, but it's not. I said, what is it though? He said, it's a dog shit. I can remember it now. And then us lot, all the lads, including myself, laughed out loud, so loud, and I nearly died of laughter. I think he just like put it back where he found it, you know, without even thinking about it. He didn't touch the dog shit, but it was in a plastic bag, and he was squeezing it, thinking it was a bit of putty, you know, you may put round a window. Oh, I've got a comment here I've missed. They've already done a hologram years ago. Tupac Shakur sing with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. Well, yeah, I mean, that's amazing. But also, you know, with AI, we could also fundamentally bring back people from the past. I mean, I've seen videos of Albert Einstein doing a rap video. So I kind of think to myself that this is a way that we could also carry on Eggle's memory in the future by, you know, having his voice synthesized and then bringing back a digital version of Eggle. But what would you guys actually think about that? Would that be disrespectful, or would you want to see a digital version of Eggle in the future? Because I think that's a fascinating thing, and I think certainly we're getting closer to that technology so that we could bring back Eggle. I could bring back Turkey, but he's not died. But I can have him on the channel with his loud voice. Hello, it's me, Turkey. No, just joking, but he does have an excellent voice. If you've never seen any of the Turkey videos, do check them out, because they're definitely worth checking out. And at some point, I need to make a new playlist for him. which I've not done so far. And then go back and check the playlists and maybe edit them again and maybe reduce the number of playlists, because we've got over 60. And I could have more, and I did have more, but I tried to merge some of the playlists in together. I did all the SEO and redid the titles, and we redid the, or actually wrote descriptions, but a lot of them didn't have descriptions. But then again, when I see Rob from vidIQ and he talks about playlists, only a very small percentage of watch time and views come from playlists. So I think playlists fundamentally are a bit outdated. But I don't know, do you guys ever watch the playlist? I'd love to know. And any more comments, any more questions? I've got a couple more good books here. I've got one I got given last night called Life in Derby. I noticed there's a few paper clippings, including one, and it's got some pictures. That's quite a nice little bit of art. And this is about Boadicea, I think, or is it about? No, I think it's about Queen Athelflaeda. Free Derby from the Danish York. Would you like me to read it to you? Because I don't have my glasses. So this is an article, and it's from the Derby Evening Telegraph from 1978. I was only 2 then. Wow. It said, in the full shadow of August dawn, the Danish sentry paused before continuing his patrol of the 45 earthworks, shrugging off the noise that he had heard as nothing more than a prowling wild dog or deer. So back in the day when the Danes were here in Derby, and of course the Vikings renamed Derby, it wouldn't have been a stone wall city. It would have been an earthwork and a palisade on top, most probably. And then there would have been, in each direction, north, east, south and west, there would have been a gate house. Or this is where the word gate comes from. It comes from gatta. So we have, like in Derby, we have Iron Gate or Iron Gatta. So that was the place where all the Norse and the Vikings and medieval people blacksmithed. And then we have Saddler Gate or Saddler Gatta. And then again, that's where all the saddlers and leather workers lived. And then there was an East Gatta, but that got knocked down when they built the bypass. And they said the year was 917 AD. And the Dane was a long way from his Viking homeland. He was guarding the vantage point of Normanton. So Normanton is a place in Derby on a big hill. And back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, Normanton was very, very posh. Now it's not so posh, you could say. But when you do look round Normanton, you'll see how big some of the houses are and how rich they must have been back in the day. And it's a part of the old part of Derby. And perhaps we'll do a video, we'll go down the main high street, Normanton Road. It's a bit like going to India, really, to be fair. It smells like curry, and there's lots of fascinating shops. You know, Turkish barbers, you know, Turkish, supermarkets, Chinese supermarkets, Indian supermarkets, Polish markets, Eastern markets. It's a really nice place. I do like it. I've been down a few times. And it's like, it's not like where I live in part of Derby. It's like going to a whole entire new place. And perhaps we'll do a video and I'll do a tour. But it's always very busy with people. It's a whole different entire world. And I've not been down for a few months. So what we're talking about, I'm just reading you an article about when Queen Athelflaeda, went and took back Derby. And of course, we don't know a lot about it. We don't fundamentally know where the battle took place. But of course, this is a legendary battle in the Viking times. And then the Saxons took back Derby, of course, and made it what it is now. So the Northman's town is what Normanton means. So Normanton, Norseman's town. Ton is the Viking word for town or settlement. This is overlooking the Saxon village of Northworthy. So the Saxon village of Northworthy was about a mile away, the original Saxon village, which would have still been there, but it would have stayed a village after the Viking time. But the Vikings wanted a bit of a better place and wanted to live more on a hill rather than just near the river, which is why Normanton came about. So overlooking the Saxon village of Northworthy, which his father had helped to capture some 40 years before. So the very fact that the Vikings had lived in Derby since they took it over from Northworthy created a whole entire new name for the place called Dialaby, which can be spelt a few ways, including one way with two eyes at the end, which is quite interesting. So they had it for 40 years, which, let's face it, is a whole entire generation of people, if not two, or maybe 1.5. But he had no reason to be complacent. Before the sun reached the heights of the midday sky, he would die at the hand of the warrior princess, and the embryo city, I don't know why I chose that word, of Derby would rest once again in Saxon hands. Because this was such an important part of the history of the Saxons were taking back Derby. It was the beginning of the end of the Vikings, of course. And of course, they retreated further up north, but Derby became Saxon again. So again, it was Saxon, it became Viking, it went back to being Saxon again, and the Vikings never took it back, unfortunately. It's a shame, but that aspect of that life in Derby was so important. So the Saxons themselves had been one time invaders when the Roman legions had finally left Little Chester. And Little Chester is, well, it's roughly in the same place, it's across the river, that's where the Romans settled, and they called it Little Chester, or Deventio, taken partly from the Celtics, and then added their Entio at the end, so the Der is a part of the Derwent, and Derwent is a very old Celtic name for the river that runs through Derby. And so when the Roman legion had finally left Chester and marched southwards in the year 410 AD, the ancient Britain had been left very much on his own devices. Tribes fought tribe, and these estimated quarrels were punctuated by sporadic raids from Saxon sea rovers. Gradually, the raids became more frequent until 586 AD, when Clydar founded the Saxon kingdom of Mercia. And I often talk about the Clydar. It's such an important aspect of that Saxon time in England and the beginning of the Saxon age, but we always think about King Alfred and those much more famous Saxon rulers. And of course, the Kingdom of Mercia with the rectum of its capital, which is not far away, about 10 miles down south from here. And again, one day we'll go there and film and do a little village tour. But I'd love to go to this church and actually go in the crypt and show you the original Anglo-Saxon crypt where they buried the royal family of Mercia. And then the ancient British village on the banks of the River Derwent was taken over by the Saxons, themselves lowland folk, and the Britons, who staged their own early brand of resistance movement, escaped to the hills and caves in the Peak District, which again is very highly defended and a great place to retreat to. And again, in the video, we'll go up the Peak District. We'll go to Thor's Cave. We've got Lud's Church, is another place we could go to, which is a fantastic bit of landscape, and it's amazing. It really is. We'll explore that in the future as well. And the Peak District is an amazing place. For those who were caught, slavery or the sword were their terrible alternatives. And of course, if you got caught by the Saxons, you had two choices: become a slave or they'll fundamentally kill you. So escaping so you could live another day and fight and have resistance was a valuable thing for the ancient Britons, or the Romano-British, as we technically know them as now. And then the Derwent was too wide and too deep for the limited engineering skills of the Saxons, and he settled instead by a smaller streamlet to the south. That's now called Markeaton. And of course, we've already got some videos from Turkey from Markeaton. And again, that's a fascinating place. And there was an Anglo-Saxon watermill there back in the day, and it got knocked down in the 1960s, which is such a terrible shame, because again, in Derby, we've knocked down so much of our fantastic history. It's is a shame that's happened. Thus, the city of Derby was born in the area around the present post office in St James's Street, and it's probable that the Wardwick, or Warderswicker, is also known. And there's a video on the channel about that from Eggle, talking about the Wardwick. And back in the day, there used to be the Wardwick chippy, and it used to be a fantastic little chippy. And there's literally no fish and chip shops in Derby Centre anymore, apart from like a calf one. It's such a shame, because you can't go and get a bag of chips anymore in Derby City Centre. It's a bloody disgrace, Derby Council. What are you doing? I love a bag of chips. So the Wardwick, a name that survives over 1,000 years, is a Saxon street and Derby's oldest. So yes, again, it's Derby's oldest street, and just on the opposite side of the Wardwick, you have Derby Museum and Art Gallery. And then Derby, or North Worthy, the fortified town of the north. Of course, Worthy or Wortheridge is the other technical expression, basically means a meeting or marketplace. And of course, all towns and all villages would have a marketplace, because trades and traders were such an important aspect of that daily life, and the ability to go and buy what you needed to buy. And of course, a lot of traders would travel around the 5 boroughs and go, you know, on a Monday they'll be in Nottinghammer, and then they'll go to Derby, then they may go to Leicester, then they'll go somewhere else. So a lot of traders moved around, and of course you always have traders and people that traded that also lived in the town and the city itself, because it became a city much later in the 1970s. But Derby has always been a town fundamentally for most of its life. So the fortified town of North Mercia was a village of wicker huts smeared with clay and with roofs of thatch. The little church of St Werburgh's offered only bare earth upon which to kneel and pray, and the windows were unglazed and open to the bitter wind. So a very basic church, not like some of these Saxon churches, which became more elaborate later on in the period. But again, as a Saxon and a Christian, you'd worship where you would worship and where you had the chance to worship. So whether it was, you know, a very basic structure made from wood and wicker and covered in mud with no glass stained windows, well, that would be your church. For 300 years, the Saxons remained in control. But as time passed, the new invader pillaged the English shores, and in 868 AD, Nottingham, or Nottinghammer, as it used to be called, and I think perhaps they should rechange it and bring back the S and respect their heritage, but that's just another story for another day. And that's just a bit of Derby humour, of course, because we've always been our big rival, and they've got a tram and we don't. Why do they get everything and we don't in Derby? And Nottingham fell before the Vikings. It was 6 years before the foothold was complete, but in 874 AD, Guthrum sailed up the Trent and Derby fell. The King of Mercia fled to Rome, and Wrexham and the Abbey was sacked and burnt by the Vikings. The surviving Saxons fled south across the Trent, and the Danish takeover was complete, and of course bringing about the Danelaw later on. And the Danes knew that while the town on the Markeaton Brook was good enough for the Saxon farmers, they had defend the southern slopes from possible Saxon counterattacks. The town overlooked by the north and south and was open to a few attacks in the east. Quickly, Danish warriors constructed earthworks at Normanton from where they had commanding view of the whole Trent Valley, including a ford at Twyford, where the Saxon road crossed the river to Repton, and perhaps we should go down and film that ford. For many years, the Danes had little to fear. Alfred the Great had failed in his bid to unite the kingdom, and was his daughter Ethelfleda who countered the Danes with a series of parallel defence along the southern slopes of the Trent Valley. Ethelfleda was to become a great woman general to the ranks alongside Boadicea. So they often say that, you know, she's like the Boadicea of the Saxon times. And again, you know, Ethelfleda isn't mentioned enough and doesn't have that reputation strong enough, but should have in history. And I really think this would make a really good movie showing her life, because we often don't think about women having power, but to describe her as a general, as a commander of troops, shows how important and how amazing she was as a warrior and a woman. But did Ethelfleda actually fight? Well, probably not. But there certainly is evidence that they had women warriors, and I don't see why not in my mind. She was the widow of the Earl of Mercia and became known furiously as the Lady of the Mercians, and by later historians as the English Joan of Arc. Again, what a great comparison to Joan of Arc. And it's a story I know very well. In fact, I never told the Joan of Arc story on the channel, and perhaps in the future I'll record that story, because it's a fascinating one. And I can remember when I bought a book many years ago in my late teens, it had the story about Joan of Arc, and it was so inspirational. And there's certainly been some very good films about Joan of Arc as well. But again, because she's French, we don't often think about Joan of Arc being a wonderful, courageous individual. Although she lived a short life, she did change France and did have that important element to play. And, you know, there's always been a rivalry between the English and the French, which goes back to a long time. But again, Joan of Arc should be highly respected as a fantastic human being, and certainly somebody that's got a legacy in history. And it's worthy of a whole live stream itself, really. But that will make a good series on the channel, talking about some of these vastly important women throughout British history. And of course, Joan of Arc was French or Frankish, but you know, it certainly affected the British troops, and we certainly lost battles because of her. But of course, in the end, we captured her and put her to death, didn't we? So I'm just reading an article from 1978 from the Derby Telegraph, which is in a book I was given the other day, or last night, by Shine Your Light, called Life in Derby. And it's quite fascinating. There's some wonderful pictures, and it shows you some of the pictures of Derby gone and past. I mean, this is worthy. I mean, it is a picture of one of the medieval houses. I mean, a lot of this is gone now. And this one here is another one, because I've already got a copy of this, but a later edition. But this has more articles in. But I love it when you get books and they got newspaper articles in. But this does have a reconstruction of what Derby used to look like back in, I think, the 17th century. So very posh back in the day. And of course, Derby became a very much massive industrial town, because we're so well known for manufacturing and for, you know, all the different aspects of pottery, and became known for, of course, in the modern age, Rolls-Royce. We have Toyota not far away. So there's a lot of awful history in Derby, and it's fantastic. So do you have any more comments before I decide to disappear and go back to watching Star Trek. Oh, I got 2 postcards I can show you as well. Let's have a look at these. This is this used to be the Midland Railway. Before they knocked it down, again, shamefully, Derby Bloody Council in the past knocked that down. Would you believe it? Look at that. I mean, how fantastic is that? And they knocked the damn thing down. When was this posted? Let's have a look. Oh, look, it's 1907. And I love old postcodes. It's postcards. Can't quite speak them. Then there's another one which just shows an old postcard of Derby. This is the old style. Old postcards are a lot smaller than modern ones and can be very highly collectible. So both of them will end up in a picture frame and hanging on my wall. So lovely jubbly. So any more comments? If you don't comment, I'll have to go and watch Star Trek. Any questions? I will try tomorrow night to get on a live stream as well and try to bring them back and start getting in the habit of live streaming again. I just got out of the habit and the last few days and I've been busy. And perhaps tomorrow night, if it's a little bit earlier, might help as well, because it's 10 o'clock at night and most people are heading to bed in the UK because it's got work in the morning. I don't, so I can get up at 10 o'clock in the morning, which would be quite nice, and go to bed in 3 or 4 hours' time. It'll be even nicer. I'm hungry, but I can't decide what to eat. Last night I had fish finger sandwiches. They were very nice with butter and tomato sauce. I never have fish finger sandwiches with brown sauce. It's always got to be tomato sauce. I did think about having salad sauce, but I thought that was a bit barbaric. So there's no more people watching or commenting. We've got 3 people watching, but nobody's commenting. I'm going to fundamentally decide to go relax for a bit and up a bit tidy enough to. Oh, we've got a little comments, guys. I'll questions. It could be end of the live stream. Random questions for Baggy. One day I ask that, and people are going to start asking me really random questions. What does that do when you click top fans? Oh, right, it just brings up people that are commenting. Oh, yeah, the new feature this is where you get points. So you've got Brad on 75 XP, Conquista Doom on 75 XP, Hashtag, you're on 75 XP. This is definitely a new feature. Chauncey Fat Sack, 75 XP. Oh, Shine Your Light is on 75 XP and is number 5 in the rank. Number 6 is Tainted Unicorn, 50 XP. Matthew Watson is on 25 XP, and Aaron Kelly, number 8, is on 25 XP. So that's definitely a new feature. I read about it and saw it the other day in a vidIQ video, and there's quite a few new features coming to YouTube, which is very good. It's all good stuff. What does that do? Oh, that just goes to the comment section. Yes. I've got some comments from chat. I've got so I must be missing some of your comments then. So hang on a minute then. I didn't see these. Yes, I just updated the chat and I've seen more comments. Oh, brilliant. I said, Chauncey Fatstick, I'm sure a good Viking raid will cheer you up. Oh, yes. Oh, it's a good. I like a good Viking pillage. If I could come back with a load of free goods and a couple of women, even better. I'm kidding, of course. Just the free goods will do me. And then Conquista Doom says, Havermel rules. Always keep spare undies for unannounced guests. Oh, yes. And if you've not seen my video where I actually do the whole of the Havermel, then I do urge you to go and check it out. Just search on the channel Havermel and it should pop up if I've not created some kind of a strange title for that video. But I do think there is a playlist for the Havermel, and I wish I could actually learn it from memory, but it's such a long thing. And then we have a comment here from Brad. Yes, wool, if you spray your wool silver reflects heat back in, and that's why they spray the inside of thermos flask silver or camper bags. They always have silver lining inside of them. Yes, that's true. But also, let's talk about painting your walls with lime wash. And why do we see lime wash in old barns? But there's a reason for that, because you get your lime wash and you mix it and you make a mixture. But what they do, they put a lot of salt in the lime wash mixture, so that when you're painting your walls, and then what they do, they tend to leave it in a tub for a few weeks or even a few months, keep stirring it round, because the longer you leave your lime wash, the better it comes. And it's basically just come from limestone which has been baked up and put into a powder. So if you put salt in your lime wash and you're painting your barns inside, it means that you won't get any infection on your walls, and it will purify and kill disease. Then Hasdak says, look up Graham Moore, Braggy. Yes, I've got a few books by Graham Moore. Is that the comic writer I'm thinking of? Fascinating character. And then Hasdak says, got to run, Braggy. Chats later. Well, have a good run. Yes, I missed these chats because I didn't click on the live stream and make them live. And then we have a comment here from Shine Your Light, who gave me the books last night. So thank you for them. I've not got my name in them yet. And then I told you those little books were the dog dangles for tidbits. Wonderful tidbits for you. Tip top, toppity toe. Oh yes, you're gonna definitely have to get that on a t-shirt. We'll put you in a Viking helmet, take your picture, and then you can have your own. We'll get your own. I'll buy you one. You get your own t-shirt for tip top, toppity toe. Dumpster Diver UK. Yeah, we'll do one with recording a couple of axes, so that if you ever meet any strange people waving butter knives at you, you just pull at your t-shirt and they'll run away saying, I'm Viking with axes, and I'm standing right next to her. And then Shiny Light says, the hamlets were broke up into different sections. Well, indeed they were. And then she also says, the main fort was a little Chester. It was indeed. And we have a comment here, couldn't quite say that then, from Aaron Kelly. So hello, Aaron. How are you today? And it says, hello. And then Shiny Light says, I love the Peak District. Was going to visit Lud's Church and the hidden waterfall, but life had other plans, so never got there. Would you come? I'll bring a picnic. He. Well, yes, if I get myself organised, we could go out for the day. I do need to get some new tyres on my car at some point, but I think they're okay installing the limit. But it would be quite nice to go to Lud's Church and perhaps find, I don't know how far Thor's Cave is from there. And then I was thinking the other day, would you fancy walking up for a couple of beers and we'll go to Makeley and we can go and get a homemade pork pie on a Thursday is a good day, and walk to Makeley. That'd be quite nice, and walk back through Duffield in the evening. You mean, we never know what you may find. Do it on a Tuesday night though. And then Shiny Light says, was there actually a fort in Mackworth with a tower too, I believe, Braggy? Well, yes, if you go to Mackworth old village, near the church that got burnt down disgracefully, you will see the massive gate. So there must have been a fort down there, unless it's actually a folly and it's been put up as a gatehouse and there wasn't a fort there. But I think it was part of a fortification. But then again, where's the rest of the castle? Why did they just leave the gatehouse? So I'll have to look that up I'm not certain whether it was a castle or whether it's just a folly. And then Shiny Light says this was I've got no idea what time it is. Well, this was 5 minutes ago. My earthing place was Repton, and again I want to go and do a village tour of Repton, which is not far away. We could fit that in the same day. We could go to Repton, and then from Repton we can drive along to Anchor Church. Then from Anchor Church we can go and park up and walk around the Viking burial ground, because I know where it is and how to get there. But not far away from the burial ground is also a 19th century shooting wall, and I could do a video there as well. You could either be in the video or be the cameraman for the day. So yes, so any more comments, do please let them follow through, and let me just refresh the comments, make sure that we're not missing any. Because they definitely changed some of the features in the live stream, which is not a bad thing. Oh yeah, and I did enjoy last night. That was fun. That was Shine Your Light. I was quite tired though. I've been tired all week. I have little periods in my life where I just go through and seem to be tired all the time. And then the week after I'll have loads of energy. I was tired earlier. I had about half an hour kip in between watching a Star Trek episode. I think it's the weather. And then Shine Your Light says, did you know that Joan of Arc, spelled with a C, was 13 years old when she was hearing voices and fled her home at such a tender young age? She was constantly near death in the battles, but still pushed through. Well, yes, I mean, that could be seen as becoming adolescence, and hearing and seeing ghosts is also common around that age, or a little bit younger as well. If you take the accounts of that famous ghost encounter down in London with the 3 girls that were being floated in the air, and they made a TV show about it. Is it Eddington? I'm trying to think of it. There's a wonderful drama show with Timothy Spall as the guy who did the investigation. I think his name was Clive in real life. I forget now. It'll come back to me when I don't want to know, or I do want to know, but it'll come back to me later on when I'm thinking about it. This is why I need another phone, so I could Google it or ask, AI, and it will remind me. But yes, I do have a few books with Joan of Arc's story, and I can't remember the name of the last film they made in the early 2000s, which was really good actually. I think it had Mila Jovovich, I think, was playing the part, if I'm correct. And again, it's a brutal period of history. What a fascinating character. And also, a woman as well. So it shows that women were strong in history, and always have been, to be fair. If you got the strength to give birth, you got the strength to lead 1,000 men into battle as well. So again, it's a fascinating thing. Sorry, I'm getting a bit thirsty. I'm drinking water, not beer. Pear and raspberry, got a bit of taste of that in it. Oh, it's been 90 minutes. Do you have any more questions, anybody? And don't forget to like the live stream. I mean, you can ask me anything you want. I may not know the answer, but I'm willing to have a go. But, I'm going to say that one day, and people are going to start asking me really crazy math questions or random questions on politics or philosophy or whatever random question. Like, if you got a turbine engine, what size is the plug? Or something really obscure, which I don't know the answer to. So I'm setting myself up by saying that, fundamentally so. But that's the part of the game. You got to read comments and answer questions. And is AI actually listening? I don't know. Could be. Is my phone listening to me right now? That's an interesting point. I've got a TV over there, and that could be listening. I've got Alexa at least 7 meters away. That could be listening. I want a lawnmower. We'll see tomorrow whether I'm going to get adverts for lawnmowers. Yeah, you wait. I reckon if I said that 2 or 3 times, I'll be showing lots of adverts on my TV, on my computer, on my phone for lawnmowers. I'll be on Facebook and lawnmowers will pop up. I'll be on TikTok. Oh, buy a lawnmower from Temu for £0. You know. But how does that work? I mean, I imagine the shipping is really expensive. But I've never been on Temu or whatever it's called. I just don't trust the site. And I don't really want to buy Chinese stuff. And why buy a lawnmower when you could probably find one in a skip for free? Or outside of somebody's house. I've definitely seen lawnmowers outside of people's houses, being left for collection or being thrown away. There was one down not far from your house a few months back, but it was an electric one. Yeah, what am I going to have tonight for dinner? I might just go not have any food. I had some biscuits earlier. I need to not eat food for a few months and lose some weight. I'd never mind. I'm resisting going shopping other than for milk. That's the most, and bread. I've got enough bread at the moment. I've got enough bread. I can't get it in my freezer. I need to get some ducks so I can give the excess bread I get to ducks. Let's look at the top fans. We've got a new feature called top fans. So if you leave a comment, you get a top fan, you get XP. But what do you do with your XP? That's what, your experience points. I don't understand that aspect about the live stream now. If you got 75 experience points because you left loads of comments, what do you do with it? I mean, can you send an emoji for free? I don't know. I have to look into that. Definitely a new feature. Then Shiny Light goes, ha ha, ha ha, hee hee. I'm going to go hee hee. I'm going to be different. Hee hee. I'll just wait here in silence until somebody comments. I can make one of those videos where I fall asleep and people watch me on the live stream where I'm asleep. Because people do that. It's beyond my understanding and capability of understanding. Why would people want to watch, somebody sleep? And people do it. People go to bed and they live stream themselves sleeping. I may as well just get a wall and start painting it, and you can watch the paint dry. Watching paint dry live stream. I might do that one day. I'm gonna paint a wall, and then I'm gonna do a live stream and see how many people actually watch the paint dry. I wonder if that's a feature on YouTube, watching paint dry. Now I've put more water in and make it more runny, so it takes longer to dry. How long does it take paint to dry? Normally like 12 hours to a day. What are you watching? I'm watching some paint dry. You could have like multiple colours, couldn't you? If you're very woke, you could paint a rainbow and watch that dry. I think I'll probably have red paint or black paint. And then Shiny Light says they knocked it down for dangerous reasons. Supposedly a castle. Oh yes, well they're always doing that, but they don't think about repairing it and our heritage. And the fact it could have been a tourist attraction. Makarov could be famous now for having a castle, but they knocked it down and built houses out of it. And then Shiny Light says, oh yes, you old goat. Well, that used to be one of my sayings when I was in a Viking battle. I would shout out, your mother's a goat. Although I heard a funny story, I'll tell you a funny story from World War II. It's a little bit controversial with the subject matter, but it's okay. We're adults. So some friends of mine were doing some research, and some of the reasons why soldiers in World War II, and this is British soldiers, got arrested. And there's lots of reasons. Soldiers got drunk, soldiers went AWOL, some soldiers may have hit the sergeants, or for various reasons, stole a car. But one of the most strangest reasons why a bunch of soldiers got arrested, because they set up a chicken brothel. So these soldiers got together and they had all these chickens and made the chickens into a brothel. And you don't really want to think any further than that. But the fact that it's written down in history, and the fact that the MPs or the military police, recorded that some soldiers set up a brothel of chickens, begs belief, really. It's not a kind of thought I want to think about. But yes, that's a true story, and that in World War II, a bunch of soldiers got arrested because they set up a brothel of chickens. I mean, you can't believe it, can you? This is the point to end the live stream. Put a chicken brothel. I mean, Jesus. I mean, you're going to set a brothel up, you want to get some women in it, not bloody chickens. But yeah, apparently that's a true recorded charge sheet from World War II, where a number of soldiers got arrested for that. I mean, it takes getting your head around that a bit, doesn't it? I mean, chickens are meant to be on your dinner plate. I don't really like chicken. There's too many bones. I don't like meaty creatures with too many bones. Give me cow or sheep or pigs any day. Or make a duck. I'll eat duck. Goose. I'll eat goose. I'm fine with that. Maybe chicken wings. I don't mind a bit of that now and again. But they never seem to be like a massive wing, so there must be baby chickens you're eating. It's a horrible thought. But no, I just don't like chicken. I'm just not a big chicken eater. I mean, I had a friend of mine called Adrian. He would buy a chicken, then he'll get 3 meals out of it. But if I buy a chicken, I eat a bit of it, and I think to myself, oh, sod this, I don't like chicken. Duck, I love duck. Oh, duck in plum sauce, or with some chow mein. Now that's a meal. A bit of goose. I've had goose before. I mean, pigeon. Who wants to eat pigeon? Partridge. I mean, give me duck any day. And then Shiny Light says, the women were written out of history, mate. They were always the bones of the fights. Well, yes. Well, recently, I think in Iceland, they've been researching and looking up some Viking graves that got dug up in the 60s and 70s. And they now proven that those graves, the graves were found with skeletons. And the skeletons had, like a shield and a spear and a sea axe. So it demonstrates that there was warriors, but they now discovered that the skeletons were actually women skeletons and not men. So, of course, women would have fought if you was not married, if you was married and probably had children, I think you'd be less likely to fight because you'd be at home defending your homestead when your husband or your household was away, or husbandi in Proto-Germanic, was away fighting. And as Egil used to say, you get a bunch of Vikings or Saxons and they go and raid a Viking village, or the Vikings raid a Saxon village. Any man that runs into a longhouse and tries to attack a woman is a fool, because women will fight to the death to protect the children. And I think that's fundamentally very, very true. But of course, if you was a young woman and you weren't wed or you didn't have a family, then I think you would be quite likely to go and fight in battle and to take part. And yes, probably men probably dominated and were more and outnumbered the amount of women fighters. But then again, where do we get the Valkyries from? Because they always seem to be armed in the classical pictures and in the stories. So, as of course, you got to think about Boadicea. I mean, a classic case of a woman fighter and her daughters, of course. So, again, all throughout history, women have fought in battles. And yes, there may not have been as many women as there would have been men in battles. Whether that's because there's always been more men than women, I don't know, because I don't have the stats at hand. But of course, women, and of course, women have the right to fight and the will to fight. And certainly, in my experience, when it comes to reenacting, when I've gone and fought women in battle who are reenactors, they're very, very tough. I mean, we had a woman called Bridget, the midget, I used to call her because she was short. Lovely woman. I can't remember her last name. But my God, she was a fierce warrior. And she was such a really good spearwoman. And great with the sword and the axe. And you wouldn't want to mess with her. And I've literally seen her carry men away on her shoulder to pillage them. So that's a tough woman. So you wouldn't want to mess with women on the battlefield, really. But of course, because we live in a male-dominated society, and because probably from the Roman age onwards it's been very male-dominated because of the propaganda, it's very male-dominated. So apparently we've got a bit of lag. We always seem to get a little bit of lag. Maybe because I'm a little bit further away from the modem, I don't know. Well, so the photo takes pictures of you every 3 seconds, getting all your data, facial, voice, body language, etc. Well, maybe so, yeah. And then Shiny Light says, you must be lagging as I'm keeping up with your yanking. Oh, yeah, I'll do a lot of hand movements. But at some point, I've got to go and wind down for the evening, and I'm going to do a bit of tidying up whilst I've got the energy. Oh, no coffee left. Oh, shame. That's a shame. Oh, look, that's quite irrelevant, isn't it? Because apparently it's backwards on the camera, where it says, bring on the night, and it's night time now. And oh, how lovely it is. It's cooler and not so warm. I feel like I don't feel like I'm a chicken in the oven, as I described it the other day to Mick and Maureen. Mick laughed, my neighbours, because it was too hot. And I sat in the lounge like this going, oh, it's too hot. And they keep joking about the fact that because I sit in the lounge quite a bit most weeks, they're going to get a little plaque saying Braggy's home. I said I'm gonna get myself a blanket with my picture on and take it around and leave it there. So it's a permanent picture of myself on their settee. But I've definitely got to invite him round for a cup of tea. It's overdue, and I've still got some biscuits left. Yay, biscuits! Comment. Adults, not when we're pillaging. He. Oh, well. I'm only as daft as the next person. I always say that when I'm standing next to somebody, because I'm basically saying that they're daft and I'm daft as well. But we do have a laugh when we go out, don't we? Because he kept on laughing last night. I must be funny. I don't know. I must have a comedy sense and a very funny sense of humour. But that was a good pillage last night. I've emptied my car today. And I'm waiting for British Gas to come round, but they cancelled the appointment. But nobody bloody bothered to tell me. I mean, that's so disrespectful. I mean, if you're a normal person, you know, I'm normal. If you're a normal person and you had to go to, you know, you had a day off on holiday from work, you would be fuming. Although I did get £30 back off my bill, but nobody phoned up from British Gas to say, "Oh, we can't make it today." I could have gone in the garden. I could have not have to wait around the bloody house all day. You know, they want a bit of this. Bloody British Gas. To be fair, the call centre people are very good, and they never ask about the money I owe them. So I'm just going to pretend it's been written off. Yeah, I'm sorry I was a bit tired last night. I just that, you know, it's all those last few nights trying to survive the heat. But at least we know what to do now on a Tuesday night. I used to think Tuesdays were boring, but not anymore. Yeah, I've always described Tuesday, Tears Day, as the most boring day of the week. Because you think about it, you know, if you're going to have one day of the week that's a bit boring, it's got to be Tuesday. Because nothing ever happens on a Tuesday, generally, does it? You know. And then today I even washed out my black bin with the hose pipe. It was a bit smelly, to be fair. So all the smelly, snaggy bin stuff has gone down my driveway now, including some rubbish I've not picked up. So that's a job for tomorrow. I thought I'd just let it go down my drive, you know, go on the road. The council can have the bin smeg. So at least my bin's small. And then I was at the side of the house cleaning my bin, and the Christian vicar appeared in the garden. Why is it around this time I always leave the live stream? So she appeared in the garden, didn't say hello to me, you know, stared at me, didn't say hello at all. So I thought, well, if you're going to be bloody rude, I'm going to be bloody rude as well, not say hello to you. So, you know, I mean, considering that I live right next to a pair of Christians, they seem to be the most ungodly people ever in the world. Well, you know, each to their own. Yeah. Perhaps I should start get some massive logs of Thor and put them towards the edge of that side of the garden so it overlooks the garden, you know. Perhaps I should build a Viking temple in the garden. That'll give them a clear message. Let's have a look. The top vans. Anybody advanced? No. Brad is still on top at number 1, 75 XP. But what do you do with your XP? I don't know. I've still got only 8 on the list. I mean, it's a pity, really. We've got 11,000 subscribers, but we don't seem to get many people watching the live streams. But then again, do we want 1,000 people watching the live streams? Then I can't cope with all the comments, because I'm never going to read them out them unless they're done through Super Chat. Where you have to donate some money to get your message highlighted. And then Shiny Light says, yeah, saw that. Convenient that. Yeah, we got the wrong set of the warrior. I'll have to think about that, because that's confusing my brain. You may have to explain that comment to me. I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. I know I sat here. I've been too busy, and I've had too many conversations with ChatGPT in the last week. When I talk to the Gemini as well. But I told her today that I don't like the word Gemini, so I said I'm going to call you Gemma from now on. 1 M, not 2 M's. And she's quite accepting of that. And then Shiny Light says, crows and women were the backbone. And of course, crows are part of the carrion and the creatures and the birds of Odin, of course, along with magpies, blackbirds, ravens and crows. And of course, it's quite interesting when you get a lot of crows, you know, living in a tree or in a load of trees. They called it a murder of crows. But where does that come from? Where does that phrase that there's a murder of crows? Does it sound like somebody's being murdered? It's always quite interesting when you park up at night in a car park near a wood, and you hear foxes shouting. It sounds like somebody's being murdered. Foxes do. Let's go just click on this. All right, I've got no products linked to the live stream. Not that I've sold anything yet. Nobody's brought anything ever on the products I've made. You know, I need to go. Oh, don't forget, folks, to go and check out the merch. And if you type in Northworthy 793, you get free postage if it's over $75 or £70, which will get you probably 3 or 4 items of merchandise. I must remember to mention the merchandise. Go and check out the merch. Yes, so I was thinking about this room and make it into a meditation manifesting room where I'm going to manifest the future. Because I was talking to ChatGPT about manifesting today. It's something I know about manifesting, but it's something that I don't quite understand when it comes to how to do it. And according to ChatGPT, I'm not being selfish enough because I'm trying to manifest things for everybody and not myself. And then you got to create these mantras where you manifest so I come up with some good ideas with ChatGPT about that. But I like the idea of making this room, decluttering it, getting rid of all the crap I don't want in here. So it's just a nice, simplified, relaxing room where I can do a bit of filming. I could sit on the settee, edit some videos, and then try to manifest more views and more success on YouTube. And perhaps manifest myself a decent girlfriend, because I don't really have one at the moment. Another subject not to talk about. I'll get slapped on the wrist if she ever sees it. Never mind, sod her, I don't really care. So yes, that's another thing. I can manifest some romance in my life. You know, but it's very difficult when you got a super intelligence and you're trying to find somebody that, you know, it's a bit like myself. You know, no wonder it's difficult because there's not many people like myself, and there's not many people that have that deep conversation, which I do with you, Ali. I shine your light. That's why we get on, because we're both great thinkers. But it's very difficult in the world where there's a lot of shallow people and people that just are selfish and just think about themselves and don't think about the bigger picture. It's just very difficult to actually find somebody to go out with and settle down with, which is one of my current missions in life. Find a decent girlfriend, you know, get married, get a pre-marriage agreement first though. And again, I deleted Snapchat again today. So, well, no, I did it yesterday. Yeah, I deleted it yesterday. Because what's the point of having Snapchat if the other person is meant to be in my life doesn't even talk to me? So I've given up on that. I should just bloody go and delete her and be done with it and move on. And then Shiny Light says, off with their head. Is that British Gas you're talking about for not turning up today to do my meter? Not that I really want my meter updating. It's the fear-mongering I think they've been putting out about, oh, your meter's going to be turned off because you got one of those old FRD meters which needs a radio signal. But I think that's mostly bullshit, if you ask me, BS. Because I've still got electricity. You know, my shower's still working. So do I fundamentally need to have it changed? And I did stress at the time with British Gas, I don't want a smart meter. I don't want one of those useless items. Plus, smart meters are out of date because I had a friend of mine who was in charge of the Midlands when it came to smart meters. So that was his job. He was head of the industry in the Midlands. And he was telling me all these things about smart meters, and the fact that they're outdated. The new model hasn't come out. This was a couple of years ago. That they don't work. They're just there for the corporate identity and for not for you. It's for the corporate entity that owns and gives you electricity. Yes, well, Shiny Light says bins go out on a Tuesday. Yes, definitely so. And some days I do forget to put my bin out, but I put it out today. And then I was outside on the front and I saw the bin men. So when it came to my bin, I stood by it and I actually thanked the bin man. Says, thanks, a guy with a beard. He would have made a good Viking. And I said, oh, thanks for doing my bin. Because how many people actually thank the bin man? And because I do such an important job. I mean, I'd like to have a go at doing that, but apparently they can walk up to 10 to 13 miles a day. I mean, perhaps I should just become a bin man for 3 months and I might lose a bit of weight and get fit again, But you got to give it to them. But I'd imagine, when we have robots, if they want to do that job, that will be replaced by robot bin wagons with robots coming out and taking your bin for you. Because I'm fairly certain a robot could load a bin up and empty it for you. And then Shiny Light says, shout out, I love you to them. Is that to random women or is that to the bin men? Although, I often go out my way and tell people I love them because I think that's a nice thing to do. But then again, I've got no problem telling people that I love them because that's who I am. And because I actually mean it, And love is a wonderful thing, and we should all love one another. If we all did that, have a bit of a heart, I'm trying to do an heart, I can't. I'm doing more than Masonic symbol, oh dear, But it's like, friends always, I left a message for my friend Irit today, Tom, and, just to see how he is, a minute long, told him about today's video. Did you watch today's video, Shine Your Light? Came out at 5 o'clock. I'd like to know if you watched it or not. Let me know what you think. If you leave a comment or send me a voice message. Did it come across okay? And I was very clever in that video because not only did I put it into the science and technology section category of YouTube, I also, when it came to the location, chose Open AI headquarters in San Francisco. So if they phone me up tomorrow saying, oh, you want to come over and talk about AI, we'll get you a flight ticket, I'm off. Off ski, I go ski. Chat about AI ski. Yeah. That used to be an in-joke with me and Eggle. And of course, tomorrow's 2 years when Eggle died. This is a bit of a sad day tomorrow, but he wouldn't want us to be sad, would he? Because he wants us to be happy and remember his legacy and remember what a wonderful person he was. And whether I get a video together about it, whether I'll record one, I don't know. Perhaps I should mark the 2-year anniversary, but I'm still kind of thinking about that in the background. Perhaps I should do an audio and put some videos together and just perhaps talk about Eggle. Talk why it was important, why I loved him to bits, some of the funny stories. Although at some point I got to find this, he wrote a lot of stories, and I got them somewhere on a computer, on a hard disk, I think. So if I can find those stories and print them out one day, I'm going to read you all of Eggle's stories. I hope I do have them, and I've not lost them. But I'm fairly certain in one of my old computers, I think in one of my documentation files, I think I've got all of Eggle Thorson's stories he wrote. They're about a character called Bulperman, about this guy that went round Belper getting into trouble. They're very funny. And I think he would actually love that, because he spent so long writing those stories. I think it's important that those stories have a legacy on the YouTube, and of course it will give me a bit more content to prolong his memory over the next few years. But yeah, it's 2 years ago. It don't seem like it. I think it was a Sunday, I heard. I have to go back and have a look. I think it was well, it may be on Friday. It might be the 4th. But I think he died on the 3rd. Maybe the Saturday. It might be the day 2 years ago, the day he died. And it was the 3rd that he passed away. So Aaron Kelly says, hope you can find them. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have them on one of my old PCs. So they'll be saved. I definitely know that. And there's quite a few of them. I did read one or two of them back in the day, and they was very, very funny with Eggles humour. So I think they would make really good videos. So yeah, and I definitely would have them on a CD as well somewhere. So that's the mission for another day, to try to get one of my old PCs up and running and find that folder where they'll be, because I think that's definitely worthwhile. And I've also got Egglethorpe's written guide to the runes. It's not a massive amount of data, but certainly something we could look to publish and maybe put out for free on the internet at some point as well, or even a small donation. I don't know. I think probably for free in my mind, because I don't fundamentally need the money. And we do have quite a few, various T-shirts with Eggle's face on and stuff like that, and merchandise. And that would actually make his day if people start buying the funny T-shirts of Eggle, going woof woof baby, and one of them's got like a picture of Eggle and a little cartoony Eggle. I'd imagine he'll be looking down from Valhalla, smiling at that, thinking, when the channel blows up and thousands of people across the world are wearing Eggle Thorson T-shirts, that would have made his day. That would have. It would have blown his mind completely, and I can just picture him, walking up to the house and coming in, but he always dress smart and wear an old tweedy suit, and he'll have a pipe in his hand. Yeah. So it's nice that we are remembering him, because not many people actually would remember a friend of theirs like what I'm doing on the channel. And of course, what you're doing, because you guys are taking part in that journey by watching those videos. So, like I say, it's not just my journey, it's your journey as well. And it's important that we do remember him. I know the previous person I was going out with kind of wanted me to move away from Eggle and at some point put into bed, because she wanted to come on the channel, but of course that never happened. And you can't be in a relationship with somebody that don't talk to you. So I doubt that will ever happen. So we'll keep remembering Eggle. So Shiny Light says, you are already manifesting. You are the creator, don't forget. That you here and you created everything that is above around you, from the blade of grass on the lawn to the trees, everything. You are amazing. Well, thank you very much. You are amazing too. And it's funny how we met over a bin. How did you two meet? Oh, well, I pulled in my car. I saw these two crazy people looking in the bin, and I said, dumpster divers. And I went up and I said, hello, are you dumpster divers? Oh, yes, we are. And we had a look in the bin, and I hope you pulled stuff out. And I told you about the channel, and you became a big fan. And again, you'll have to pop on the channel as a guest or a host somehow. We'll break out some Viking clothes dress you as a Viking for the day. I don't know whether your family watch the videos, whether it's just you, but I think that will make your family laugh. And your daughters were saying, "Oh look, there's Mum dressed as a Viking." But it's also about manifesting, more success for the channel as well. Because, content creating can be very frustrating at times. Because, and today I put out a really important video today in my mind. Probably one of the most important videos I've ever made in many aspects. But, you could have a woman miming to a sausage and she'll get 600,000 views. Whereas you put out a serious, really good, video where you speak your mind, you speak your truth, you have integrity, you have, that emotional intelligence and the bravery and the courage, because it takes bravery and courage to talk about some of the subjects I'm going to talk about, whether it's mental health, whether it's the Vikings, whether it's AI. But those videos, they take courage. And not enough of us have that courage. And we all have courage. It's within all of us. Because, people say, oh, if I talk about this on camera, people are going to ridicule me. People are going to take the mickey. I'm going to get trolls. So it does take a lot of courage to talk about some of the bigger subjects in life. And the reason why I think I need to cover these subjects is not just for me, but it's about the bigger picture. It's about humanity, and it's about changing the world one video at a time. And again, if like those mental health videos, and I got to record the next one about that as well, which is going to be a video about making friends. If one person sees those videos, then it really done fundamentally, and it changes their lives and brings about some positivity in their lives, and those videos have worked. So yeah. And then Shine Your Light says, your neighbour, I love you. No, not yet seen a vid, mate. Busy cleaning a bike. Oh yes, I wonder where you got that from. And by chance, one of the people in this comment feed today found a BMX bike in a hedge, a bit rusty. So we have a comment here from Ali the Black Prince. Your opinion on Alfred the Great? Well, Alfred was a very great leader, wasn't he, in many aspects. It's difficult to judge the person when you don't know the individual, but certainly within the records of history, but he was very privileged as well. Don't forget, he would have brought up in a royal family. He had very good education. He travelled to Rome, and you can actually go to Rome where he stayed and still stay in that hotel. It's still a hostel, amazingly, after 1,200 years, and I find that to be quite amazing. He would have met the Pope at the time, so he was very privileged, and he certainly had an education, because not many people, including some of the kings, could not actually read or write. And again, a lot of people that read or write were the monks, because they were taught that in their education. And again, we have to thank Charlemagne for bringing about education, but there's also a throwback to the Roman age as well, because they were very highly educated. And then we lost a little bit of it, but Charlemagne kind of brought it back in the monasteries. But Alfred, yes, he was a very courageous leader, and certainly he was very clever when it came to winning the battles and fighting the Vikings. And I forget some of the battles, I can't remember everything. But then again, if we think about the Last Kingdom and seeing Alfred in that, does he relate in that program to what Alfred would have been like, back in the time? And I really did enjoy the Last Kingdom, even though at times they get things wrong, like using 19th century tankards and having a sword made in the day, and having what's his name, having a sword on his back, Uhtred of Badenburg, which is sort of a ridiculous thing to have on your back. I mean, it's so fantasy, it really is. So what would he have been like? Yes, well, again, courage. You would have had, a lot of strengths and leadership, because you needed those strengths. And of course, he had to disappear into the marshes when the Vikings invaded and took over the city he lived in, or the town. And of course, you get the famous story of him burning the cakes. Whether that's true, I think it probably was. And I recently did tell that story in one of the folk tales. At the end of the folk tale, it's one about, there's a folk tale I told about a cake that kind of grew consciousness and ran away because he didn't want to be eaten by those greedy children. And at the end of that folk tale, it's called The Cake That Ran Away. You can't miss the thumbnail. It's got a picture of a cake with legs running away. At the end of that story, I impromptu told a story about King Alfred and the cakes, and it makes you think what kind of cakes there were. I think there was sort of an oat cake being cooked on a metal skillet, and a skillet is basically just an iron plate with a handle. I've got a couple downstairs, but I'm not downstairs, I'm upstairs. And so yeah, I mean, he certainly beat the Vikings. You know, he didn't unite England, but he certainly brought that about, and he brought that, the beginning of that. So he's a very complex character, and again, highly educated for a man of his time. And you know, we know what he looks like from the coins, and we have enough data on that. So yeah, he was an incredible individual. And you know, as a Viking, more somebody that aligns more to the Vikings, it's a compliment to say that about King Alfred. But yet again, we often get comments on the channel, oh, why do you not worship the Saxon gods and you worship the Viking gods? Why aren't you, enjoying your Saxon heritage? Well, we do, because the Saxon heritage is just as important as the Norse heritage. But back in the day, in the 90s, when I was becoming a Norse pagan, there wasn't a lot of information about, and not a lot of people were actually practicing Anglo-Saxon paganism, as it was back in the day before they came Christianized. And of course, that's become more popular, and I really love people. We certainly had somebody on the channel many years ago that's an Anglo-Saxon priest in America, and has wrote books about it. And again, I can't remember his name. He's on YouTube, got his own channel, fascinating individual. I really would love to read his books, actually. So yeah, fascinating character, and perhaps in a video I'll do a bit more research and actually make a very long video talking about Alfred the Great. And of course, it's a great title to roll, because Alfred, you know, the Great, it sounds good. It sounds a wonderful title. I mean, I can't quite remember what his surname actually was. That escapes me, that does. But again, you know, and only his children were also amazing. His daughter, Ethelfleda, was an amazing, I said American then, an amazing character, a strong woman character in history. And not enough women are really holding their position of power and are respected enough, because we live in a male-dominated society for many, many years. But, you know, women are tough characters, the great leaders. You know, they're very wise generally, and of course women are also very attractive, and as a man that's a wonderful thing. So yes, Alfred, fantastic character. And where would English history be without him? Of course, we wouldn't be where we are now. But of course, the Normans came and slightly changed that. But again, I've always had a slight bit of bias towards William the Conqueror, because as somebody that really enjoys Saxon history and loves that heritage, and somebody that also enjoys and loves the Norse heritage, you kind of see, you know, the Anglo-Normans as a bad thing for British society, because it changed society and the world we live in, you know, dramatically. But again, you know, as I've read in more recent times books about William the Conqueror, or William the Bastard as he was popularly known, or William of Normandy, I actually have a lot of admiration towards the man because of what he went through in his childhood. You know, people trying to kill him and so forth, and when he had to ride away and escape being killed and all that, and his history. And he was a brutal leader. He was a fantastic leader. And let's face it, you know, he took over England from France, and that's a massive achievement. So perhaps we shouldn't really look at the Normans with having that biased point of view, and we should really take a step back and look at the bigger picture of what Anglo-Norman history brought about. Yes, it brought a massive change about the world, and of course that later led into the later medieval age and chivalry and all that. But again, it's a fascinating era of history. And if we forget history, we can't learn from history and we can't change the future. So history in the past, we look at history, we look how they did things right, we look how they did things wrong. We take that point of view and we use it to make a better future. And of course, history is all around us. And we shouldn't also, within this channel and within the world, limit ourselves to the history of the past, because we are living in history. We are history today. And, you know, you may not want to have a voice on the internet. You may not want to be seen by people. But, you know, if you do, and you do have a voice, then it's your responsibility as a content creator to speak your mind, but speak it clearly and precisely, and see it and have that, you know, high enough intelligence, but not just intelligence in the sense of, oh, you're a clever person, but also emotional intelligence and the intelligence to have foresight and to see things with clarity. And then, you know, and I can't stress enough why I talk about this subject of the future, because I read history. I've read a lot of books on history, and in many aspects I can see as, you know, at this stage in life, repeating history. But we also are on this point in history where things are changing, because we're going through this moment in time. You know, you can call it what you want, the shift or whatever it is, but we're going through this moment in time, and we're going to change the world, but we've got to change it for the better, for humanity and for all of us, so that we can have longer lives, we can have creative lives, and we can bring about, you know, a wonderful place on this planet, and then go forward into the stars, and you know, populate planets and continue the human race. Because we can't fundamentally and naively, you know, decide to say, oh, you know, planet Earth is our planet and we're not going to go beyond it, because that will doom humanity to fail, because the planet will one day fail. And of course, in hundreds of years and thousands of years time, we're not going to be around, but maybe these videos will be a legacy to the future. We'll see. But because I won't know that, because I'm not going to be here. I'm only going to be here in legacy. And of course, one of the reasons why I talk about the present and I'm so passionate about where we're going in society, because it's about word fame. And so that relates so much to the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings, because, you know, those people in our past lived word fame, and most people were not remembered. But people like Ragnar Lothbrok and people like King Alfred, well, they've got their word fame. They're remembered. There's TV programs about them. There's documentaries. There's films. People, you know, you're pretty certain you can get a King Alfred T-shirt. So that's an amazing thing. So Larry Gooseman says, "What is your favourite Viking food?" Well, let's talk about the ritual of there you are as a Viking, you know, maybe it's myself, maybe it's Egil. And, you know, we live in a community and we have a Jarl, or in the Saxon terms, a Earl. And, you know, he's invited us to the Longhouse. You know, he's got a big long house. You know, he's got a land. He may be a housecarl, maybe. Well, we've been invited to the table, and we've been invited to, it may be a wedding, maybe a celebration, or maybe it's just a good excuse for a good feast and a good session of drinking. So me and Egg go along, and we're high-ranking Vikings. Well, maybe we're Saxons. We're wearing colourful clothing because we can afford to have clothes with the colour blue and maybe purple or pink, which are very rich colours to have. It denotes that you've got money and you've got coin, and therefore you've got land and you got the coin to have colourful clothing, you know. And we've got a Danax, maybe we've got a sword and a helmet. And so we you know, and most, you know, earls and most of these properties will be surrounded by you know, a ditch with a palisade, because most of them will enclosures, and some of them will have towers, some of them may not have wooden towers, because certainly within the laws of being a housecarl, at some point in the medieval age, during the Vikings and the Saxons, you had to have a tower, just in case you got raided, so you could ring a bell. That was a thing. And so there we are, and me and Egg will turn up. Maybe we walk there, maybe we got on a horse, maybe we've gone in a horse and cart, and there's a few of us gone from a nearby village, or maybe we've got our own homestead and our own place. So we've gone along, we've been invited to this big, party, as we will call it in the modern world, and we turn up. We've got a sword and an axe. We're wearing a helmet because you generally go out in your finest gear. You never know who you're going to meet on the road. And so there you are. You're invited into a long hall, a grand hall, not like a normal small long house, but a really massive long hall. Could be 60, 70 foot long, and 30, 40 foot wide. And the first thing you do, you go through the double doors, and there's a rack to hang your weapons. So you hang your sword up, you take out your sea axe, and you put your axe hanging up on the weapons rack. Maybe there's more than one. Maybe there's a servant taking your weapons off for you, because you can't fundamentally go into a long hall with your weapons, because that's disrespectful in that culture. And it's also about keeping the place safe, because you're there to have a good time, and what you don't want is 30 or 100 warriors all getting drunk and then start having a fight, because that could be quite brutal. And of course, it's all about hospitality. So there we are, we've donned the weapons off, we've handed them to a servant, and it's a bit like going to a nightclub, isn't it? You go to a nightclub, you go to the closet where you go and hand over your jacket, you get a ticket. It's the same principle, so it's not fundamentally changed. It's just that in the modern world, we don't go around with axes, and we don't have, you don't go to the closet where they take your jacket and say, all right, here's my knife, here's my axe. We don't do that in the modern world, but the same principle is still there fundamentally. So, of course, in the Saxon times and the Vikings times, you didn't have to actually go and give them some coin, unless you're generous and the person that looking after your weapon did a good job. Maybe that's another subject for another day. So there you go. You go in, and maybe because we're high ranking in our position, because we're wearing colourful clothing, because we have brooches of gold or silver, you get positioned high up on the table. So the back of the hall be a long table, and then tables down the side, and in the middle would be open space and the hearth with a big fire, and it'll be raised off the ground, and there'll be a wooden frame around it made from beams, and there'll be soil or sand in that frame, so the fire is on top of soil, because you don't want to put your fire on top of a wooden floor, because you're going to burn your longhouse down, and that takes a lot of money and coin to make. So you're sitting there, and you get escorted down to the high table. In the centre of the table will be the Earl or the Jarl, or maybe the Huscarl, and beside him would be sat his wife. And then maybe some high-ranking, bodyguards will be sitting next to him, and then his family. But there's a couple of spaces left at the end, and me and Egg will get invited to sit at that table. And we're there because we're high-ranking in society, because we're respected. And of course, if you're at the lowest end of society, you're at the far end of the table, way down in the long hall at the bottom, where the table goes down this way. So it's like a U shape. So the poor are down here and the rich are up here. And it's not about segregating the people in position in society. It's just about respecting that position. And when you go into a long hall, you always see at the back of the hall the throne of the person that owns a chair. And then, of course, the fetch tables out, and the tables are generally stored. And then round the edge of the long hall, you'll have what you call mead benches, where all the warriors and the people sit. And the higher up you are on those mead benches, the higher up you are in your position. And, there may be 10 or 20 courses. So Larry's talking about what sort of food would I like. Well, generally, I like my meat. I'm a meat eater. I'm a carnivore. So, give me, a bit of venison. Give me a nice, good chunk of beef. Maybe, pig or lamb. And, you'll be having, vegetables like peas. But in my mind, give me a good sized bit of beef, a bit of venison. Maybe, give me a good bit of ribs, pork ribs, and that would be nice. And of course, they knew how to cook as well. And there'll be a separate outbuilding where they're most probably cooking this. We don't cook it in the long haul at a time. Maybe you'd be having a bit of stew, maybe some kind of a soup. That was also popular. But for me personally, I don't think you could beat having a good chunk of meat, a bit of cheese, and a bit of bread. And they'd also, eat in a very different style to us because they didn't have knife and forks like we have. So you have your right hand, and that'll have your knife, and you have some cheese and bread in this hand, and you'll be slicing your cheese, poking it with your knife, putting it in your mouth, eating your bread, and you'll be eating with your left hand, sliced cheese, bit of bread, and then your meat comes along, and you probably grab that with both hands, and you munch that away. So a lot of it was being ate with your hands as well, but they certainly did have knives, and you would have used your seax. So maybe when you went in the long haul, you may have kept your eating knife, a small seax. You're certainly not going to be using one that size and shape. But yeah, so a bit of meat, a bit of pork, but personally, a good bit of venison, that's lovely. A good bit of beef on the bone, you can't beat that. And some cheese and bread. And that's what I like in reenactment. My favourite meal, whatever period of history I was cooking, I'll have a haversack, or I'll have I'll have a bag, whether it's made from linen, whether it's made from leather, and inside of that I'll have some bags made from linen, and then have a nice loaf of bread. I'll have a bit of cheese, maybe I have a bit of cut meat. So when I'm on the march, I could sit down when I'm sitting down. I could pull some bread out, slice a bit of bread off, get some cheese, and eat a bit of cold meat. So that's my favourite meal when it comes to reenactment. But they also made lovely things like gingerbread, and they had herbs and spices. And a lot of the breads would have lots of ingredients and lots of herbs in. So it's not like today's bread. Today's bread is very bland compared to what they would have had. So I hope that answers that question and gives you a bit of a physical and a mental description of what it'd be like to go to a banquet where you're and of course there'd be lots of games. There'd be leg wrestling. There'd be spinning around this beer, and when you're drunk, and you'd be singing songs. And also what happened, there would have been a lyre would have been passed around, a harp, and everybody would have to have a go at playing the harp. And of course, you may sing for 10 minutes. You may only sing for a couple of minutes or even 30 seconds, but you had to have a go. And everybody, no matter what position or rank, where you come from, whether you're the lowest farmer in the world or whether you're a jarl, a harp would have been passed around, and that was also very common. And of course, they would have had bone flutes and flutes made from willow. So, there would have been a lot of music. And of course, we don't have the music recorded because we don't have that access to remember what the music was like. And of course, that's sad because we're missing that data in history. And there's no way of getting that data back unless we can go back to the past. But, that's a whole different subject about time travel, which, is a whole entire subject on its own. So I hope that gives you a bit of a description. And, I close my eyes, I can imagine what it looks like. And I've been there in history as a reenactor. And I really would love to be invited to some long hauls and whether it's Resto, whether it's some of the other places in the UK, or even in Europe and America or across the world, because people are building longhouses, all over the world now, because there's sorts of thirst for medieval Viking and Anglo-Saxon history. People are erecting longhouses. They're remembering our past. So, and I've been invited to lots and lots over the years. And at some point, when I do start traveling, and you'll notice, because you'll start seeing videos where I'm going to locations, I would love to go to some of these halls and eat like a Viking and experience that, but also record it for you guys. Because, no matter what we do on the channel, whether it's covering some of the more modern subjects I want to talk about, we're still going to respect the heritage of the channel and talk about the bigger subjects in the medieval world and go to lots of museums and galleries and castles and Stonehenge. We'll go and look at some of the lovely sailing boats from the 16th and 17th century. We'll go to America and look at American history. Go to France and Germany, Norway, Sweden. We're going to travel everywhere. So it's going to be an amazing journey. So we've got a comment here from Shine Your Light. He says, Braggy, they would not be surprised at anything when it concerns Mama. Oh yes, I'm sure they would not be surprised at all. And you got a lovely family, and I can definitely tell your daughter has your spirit, because I can feel your energy from her, and it's nice to know that you got a lovely family. I wish I had a family like yourself, because I don't have that family. This is why I've adopted my own family and made my own family, and and don't get me wrong, I love my family to bits, but they're not very nice people, and why would you have not nice people in your life? And not nice people don't tend to change much, but it's up to them. I'm doing what I'm doing, and they won't like what I'm doing on YouTube. They won't like me talking about the bigger subjects, and if ever, get really, not that I want to get famous, but I don't fundamentally want to get famous. I mean, I've done and started this channel to change the world and make the world a better place. I'm putting the world and humanity first before myself. And not a lot of people do that, because not a lot of people are brave enough and have the courage to do that. And I understand that. Not everybody's like me. I'm a real complex individual person with my own individuality, which is a very long word. I don't know whether that is a word, but I think I've coined it the other day when I'm thinking about being individual. But yeah, but where would the channel be without you guys? It wouldn't exist. And a lot of the time I make my videos, I make them just for myself because I enjoy what I do. But I want those videos to grow. I want those videos to reach a wider audience, to get millions and billions of views. And I know certain members of my bad family, because I've got good family and bad family. It's funny how all my bad family's on my dad's side. I won't say and name names because I'm not like that. But I forgive them, and I feel sorry for them, and I have nothing but pity for people that treat your own family the way they treated me. But they've got to live themselves, and that's fine, because I'm happy with who I am, and I'm content with the person I am. And I'm a very rare thing on this planet, because I am a really caring and decent individual. I'm not perfect. I've got my flaws. I'm a bit stubborn. I'm a bit probably set in my ways, but I'm also very futuristic. I've always considered myself to be a futurist. And I like to do and work in an industry where I change the world, which is why I'm so attracted to AI and artificial intelligence, because I can see it massively being a future. But lots of things need to change on the world, and we need to get away from the secrecy. We need to reveal all the secret information, all the things that's been hidden. But the world needs to become a better place and a kinder place, and a place that's run by goodness and kindness, and where people look out for each other. And we need to stop being selfish. We need to stop having egos, and we need to stop thinking about ourselves and putting us and not us. We need to put other people and the world first. And then Shiny Light says, you wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for your mother, your earthing creator mother. Well, of course so, but we won't be here now without all the other tens of other family members and mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers. So again, that's such an important aspect. And I do miss my mum. It's been 13 years since my mum passed away. And I did a lot of caring. So from 2009 up to 2023, I did a lot of caring for my parents. And the reason why I did that is because I love my parents, and I wouldn't see my mum and my dad in a home. And of course, that again sacrificed a lot of my years of my life putting my parents first and not myself. But when you love somebody, that's what you do. Certainly me and my dad got on more than me and my mum at times. They towards the end, I was pretty much caring for my mum more than my dad was, because my mum kind of fell out with my dad because of the complex of her health. My mum was fundamentally dying, so that has that massive effect on you. But she was always full of energy, and even towards the end, of her life, she used to go down Derby, going night clubbing with her friends, and going for a meal on a mobility scooter. Um, so she never gave up, and she was just very strong spirit. She was very, she was she was a strong woman. Was my mum, but her name was Kathleen. But yeah, but of course, you lose people in your life, but you don't forget, and it's everybody's energy and everybody's all around you all the time. Yeah. Do we have any more questions? Any more comments? Any more thoughts? Anything else you want me to talk about? Because I'll keep talking all night if I'm not careful. And I've got to go and watch a bit of Star Trek at some point, and because I like to watch a bit of TV just to take my mind away from everything, to give myself that downtime. Even though I'm watching Star Trek, I'm probably working on my phone. I'm probably asking another question of ChatGPT, which I used a lot. We've become very good friends, you could say, without going too much into the complexity of our relationship. But yeah, and I was going to do a bit of filming today, but I felt a bit tired. If I feel tired, I don't like filming because I feel like, oh, it's going to show on camera. But perhaps I should put a bit more effort into filming every day. But then again, I got so many videos in hand. I got so many videos to edit. I'm not going to run out of content anytime soon. But of course, I'm trying to work on some bigger content, some more meaningful content, but also keep up with the medieval and Viking and Saxon stuff. And of course, there's so many videos I need to research and work on. I just don't have enough time. That's fundamentally why I want the channel to blow up, because then I could hire an editor. I could hire somebody to produce the videos and work with me on that, because that's going to save me so much time and energy. Because it's great being a creator behind things, but I'm wearing every hat. And what I mean by that is, I'm the director, I'm the producer, I'm the editor, I'm the guy that does the comments, I'm the guy that does the merchandise, and the person in front of the camera, and the researcher, and the prop person. So I do all these jobs, and I got no doubt there's probably channels just like mine in size that put out the same sort of content, and they probably have a whole team of people. I'm just me, so at times it becomes very overwhelming. And when you get overwhelmed, and I get overwhelmed with my thinking, and it's difficult to deal with. And then you need to have your downtime just to detune and to relax a little bit, to try to forget about the bigger picture. But in the back, but I'm watching TV. I may be watching, and I don't watch mainstream television. Because I'm not into that programming. I choose what I watch because I have the freedom of will to decide what I want to watch and when I want to watch it. And I like to watch things which have a positive impact on my life. Even though I just watched The Tussler King, which is all about a gangster from New York, Sylvester Stallone, but I must say, really enjoyed that TV program. If you've not seen it, do check it out. I did subscribe to Paramount Plus at a very cheap rate for 3 months, just to give me a bigger option, because I'm currently watching Highway to Heaven, and I need a break from that. But I do love the positive message, and I love the story about an angel being on Earth, helping people. It's a bit like the A-Team, but it's set with an angel, and they don't go around shooting people. So again, it's a positive TV program, and it's a bit sad how Michael Landon and Victor French both pretty much died a few years not long after they finished filming that program. I think it was Victor French died first, and then Michael Landon died second. And apparently there was massive chain smokers. They were smoking like troopers on the set and all the time. But yeah, you've never seen Highway to Heaven. Yeah, check it out. I know it's a bit of a strange program to be watching as a Norse pagan, but I'm more than just a Norse pagan, because shamanically, I'm so much more in my depth and my complex individuality of the life I live. But that's me, and that's who I am. So Shiny Light says, you will always be, for every is infinite, and you only have lost your avatar body suit. Well, of course, we're higher spirits, and this is just the vessel we're living in lives in. And I'll probably go off somewhere else to bring positivity to the universe. So that's fine. But I've always believed there's more than just the body, and that there's more to life than dying. And it's quite interesting to see some of these videos where people have near-death experiences and they fundamentally die, but they seem to go to some magical place where they meet people and are given messages. Some of those videos are quite fascinating. There's a channel, I can't remember the name of the channel, which records these stories about people having near-death experiences or actual death experiences where they, on a hospital bed, maybe they've had a heart attack and they've died for a few minutes, and they come back with this marvelous story and journey, about being in space and being around all this energy and light. So those videos are quite fascinating. And of course, if it's on a percentage wise, then 50% there's no afterlife and 50% there is an afterlife, and that we are a higher spirit and we're more than just a body. And I think that's really good odds. And I know which side I'm on. I'm on this side where there is more to life and death. And we put so much emphasis when it comes to death, and so many people are scared of dying. And of course, nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to pass away. But if there's more to life than death, then what should we be scared of? But of course, if the newspapers come out next week and saying, afterlife has been proven, and there's lots of research in afterlife science going on at the moment. If that came out saying, when you die, you carry on living, well, I imagine a lot of people are going to choose to just jump off bridges because they've had enough of this modern world we live in. But that's another story for another day. I think there's a film based on that, but I can't remember. And then Shine Your Light says energy is infinite. Well, in Hawaiian shamanism, the first rule is out of the 7, well, not rules, but 7 guides. And I'll have to get my book out to remember all 7 of them. But basically, the first one is that now is the moment of power, which basically explains in Hawaiian shamanism that the only moment in time which is important is now, this very moment. And that is, and this what you decide to do now affects the future. And also in the whole complexity of your brain, your brain is very much living in this moment. But when you think about the future and the past, it doesn't really exist to your brain, because if you think about the future, although it's, you're thinking about what's going to be in the future, but it's living that future in this very moment in time. And therefore, when you think about the future in this very moment, because as far as your brain concerned, the only moment in time is now, that manifests the future. And when you think about the past and you go back to a time in your past, you're remembering a good time, for instance, as far as your brain's concerned, although it remembers that past side of what you're thinking about, but it's living it in the very present. So in Hawaiian shamanism, the first rule is the guiding rules is that now is the moment of power. But the second rule is basically saying that we're infinite and space is infinite, and so are you. And it's by a book by Dr. King, who's a fantastic shaman and who studied Hawaiian and Polynesian shamanism. And these 7 rules I fundamentally live by, because they're so clever, and these guides were written down an awful long time ago in history, when all these magical Polynesian shamans got together and they wanted to explain existence, so they came up with these 7 concepts. And I find that to be fascinating. If I could find the book, I would one day read it out on camera, because it will fundamentally blow most people's minds. And the fact that these guides or rules, whatever you want to call them, are probably thousands of years old is also pretty damn amazing. And of course, what I always find amazing about the Polynesian people, because we think about let's relate Polynesian culture to the Vikings and medieval history. So we often think the Vikings were the most travelled people in medieval time because, let's face it, they discovered America, Finland, or Finlander. They went to Istanbul. They went to the Mediterranean. They discovered Africa. Not discovered, but they went there. They travelled there. But when you think about people that travelled, well, I think the Irish monks travelled equally as far distance, and it's pretty amazing. There you are, you're living in the 6th century or the 7th century, and you're being told, by your bishop or by a high priest, that you got to go and get in a conical and go and make a new settlement and build a new church. So you get in it, you've got your provisions, and you get maybe 2 or 3 of you in a conical little boat, and then you end up in Iceland randomly because the waves get you there, and you build a church and you build a new Christian settlement. They travelled an awful distance, and the Vikings had long ships, but could you imagine doing that in the ocean in a conical, which is just a round little boat made from willow and with leather, which is being water sealed? But then you think about the Polynesians and the fact that they could travel 2,000 or 3,000 miles in between, the different islands, but also knew the ability to travel the Pacific Ocean and also, reach an island which would be so remote. And of course, they would have had knowledge of the stars to do this, fundamentally so. So also, I think probably the Polynesians in the ancient world were probably the people that travelled the most, because of the fact that the different islands like Easter Island and Christmas Island and all these islands and so forth were so remote from each other. So that's also absolutely fascinating, and I love to go to that part of the world and spend time with some Polynesian shamans and discover that knowledge, because they kept their record of shamanism or shamanism, however you want to describe it, it doesn't really matter, because it wasn't fundamentally destroyed by Christianity. So their records within the Hawaiian Polynesian structure of shamanism and magic was saved. And so it's also a good resource when you're trying to study Norse or medieval or Eastern shamanism, because a lot of that data has been eradicated through history. It's also a good source to go from. And although, yes, if you're trying to study Norse shamanism and get into a deep and meaningful way, yes, Polynesian shamanism isn't the same thing, but it's got the same roots. It's got the same principles, because shamanism across the world is very similar. And I find that to be quite fascinating. And do check out the books by Dr. King, because such a lovely character, and I'd love to actually meet him and talk to him. And I know he often visits Hawaii and the islands over there, and they have meetings where all these shamans come together and discuss the world and shamanism. So we have a comment here from the Viking, Martin Brown. Oh, good evening. Good evening, Martin. How are you, my friend? Are you okay? I've been thinking about you with all the problems, the riots been going on where you live. Hopefully they calm down now. Not that I check the news very often, but I have been thinking about you and praying to the gods that you've been kept safe, Martin. So please do let us know, if you're okay, Martin. Lovely man you are. And thank you for being on the channel and being in the comments and supporting us. And I really do love you to bits, Martin. So without going too much into that feeling of, because I'll trigger my empathy, and then I won't be able to speak for a few seconds or minutes. Because that's the thing about empathy. When you get the empathy rises and you have that sudden rush of emotion, It's the only time when I can't talk. But that's just the way I am. And then Shiny Light says, glad tidings, Viking Martin. Oh, yes, a superb cook and excellent Viking. Number one fan from Belfast. Oh, yes, we'll have to get you a t-shirt and send one out to you one of these days, Martin. And then the Viking Martin Brown says, spent last weekend training kids axe throwing. Oh, yes. I can remember when we used to do work for the Jorvik Viking Centre, and they hired the group I was in to go around all the cities around Yorkshire and the Midlands, putting on liquor events. And so there you'd be in a liquor enclosure in a city centre, and it's time to give all the kids a shield and a rubberized sword. Then you're training to be a Viking, and then you get into a little battle with them. So you'd have all the kids on one side, and you'll have all the Viking adult reenactors on the other side. I used to dread that because the kids were brutal they were. And I developed a technique how to survive that battle with all these children. And there was, they had little rubber shields and rubber swords, but they went at you like it was a real battle, going, let's get the Viking, they were brutal. So my technique was to, as soon as possible, was to die and then curl myself up into a ball and put my shield over my head and just pray to the gods, and they're there backing you with a rubber shield or axe. Yeah, I don't miss that. So, and how is that going with teaching children how to throw an axe? I mean, did I have a real axe, or is it a rubberized axe? I mean, that could be quite interesting. Yes, but I'm definitely on about setting up an axe target in the garden. I'm working on the idea in the back of my brain, and I got the idea of how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do two. I'm going to do an axe target and a javelin target out of some massive, big, round logs. I know where there is some. I've got to go rescue them from nature. And then, so are you doing that with your group, or are you doing it as yourself? Because that's what TK used to do, was to go around the education system. And then we got hired by, like I said, Jorvik Viking Centre. And then TK used to stand outside and work for the Jorvik Viking Centre for many years, and probably met hundreds of thousands of people doing it. And he says, I have 5 events booked over the next 6 weeks, and I have a wooden sword. Well, yeah, that's what we used to have, wooden swords, little wooden shields. It says, no real axes or spears. No, you definitely don't want to give real axes or spears to kids, because they're going to stab you, and they're going to throw axes at you. But yeah, and then Eggle and I used to go around the education system as well, doing either morning shows or full day shows, which did pay quite well. And we certainly got hired by councils. It can be very profitable doing that. It's not the kind of thing I want to get into. And I do get asked now and again, oh, can you come to our school? Can you come and do a morning talk on Vikings? Or, we used to do, TK used to do the Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, Normans, Romans and Celts. So he did the whole period, because the more period clothing you got, then the bigger and the more shows you could do. I think it's all about building up a portfolio of schools and events you could do to build up and have regular work. Because, if you did that every, 3 or 4 days a week, you're going to make more money doing that rather than having a job. So it's a good way of earning a good living. And of course, you also educate children. And then another area we used to do was going to old people's homes and doing it, surprisingly. That was quite useful and quite lucrative back in the day. So that could be another target area for you to work at. So yeah, I've got quite a few. I keep finding wooden sword and shields in charity bins. So if I get a large collection of them, I'll post them over to you. So that's good. And it certainly covers and pays for your hobby. And then Martin says, and sometimes a friend books me for the axe throwing. Well, again, there's an axe throwing place in Derby Centre. Not been to it, but that's meant to be quite popular, and there's more and more axe throwing places starting these days. And then Martin says, all blunts. Oh, excellent. Well, I'm glad that's working out for you. And then the Viking Martin Brown says, I'm doing Viking cooking this Saturday. Just got a load of dried fish and beef today. Well, again, one of my friends who was on the channel, Tecto Sagers, wanted to do that and have a little van and go around to educational places and venues and actually do like, Viking cooking, from a little tent. And it's certainly, another possible thing to do because people would hire you for that, and it was very cost effective. And he was going to do it through the van was going to be a cooking van, so he could also go to venues and also cook Viking food for events as well, which is also very profitable. But of course, you've got a lot of cooking knowledge, and you should definitely use your expertise when it comes to that, because that would be a great benefit, not only to the public but to yourself as well. But we'll definitely have to come and see you in the future, Martin. When I start travelling, it's not far away, Belfast. Get there by helicopter could be nice. I like travelling by helicopter. I'm going to get a van so I can have a van I could stay in one of the aims, so I can go to places and have a little camper van. Then Shiny Light says, I'm off to Braggy of the Shires. Glad tidings from my heart to yours. Well, glad tidings to you as well. And I'll no doubt speak to you tomorrow in the daytime. When I wake up, I'll send you a message if there's not one from you already waiting for me. It depends what time I wake up, I'm planning at the moment to wake up about 10 o'clock in the morning at the moment. And then the Viking Martin Brown says, just a bit, been cooking over 40 years. Well, that's an awful lot of experience. So, definitely use that to your advantage. And you should definitely think about, setting yourself an authentic setup and cooking on YouTube, because I think there will be a massive thirst for authentic Viking cooking. And I'd even share with you my massive folder full of medieval recipes if you're ever interested in getting a copy of that, which was put together by Tecto Sagers, who was a fantastic cook. But there's literally hundreds and hundreds of medieval recipes he's collected. And I thought about cooking myself on the channel, but it's just too much and too complicated for myself to do. And I've got enough things going on in my brain. I don't need to add more to the scene. And of course, you need all the equipment. So if you've got the authentic cooking equipment, and you could do it from a side tent, then you could certainly make some decent content. And if you ever want to do that, let me know, and I'll give you my advice and support. We could have you on the channel as Martin's cooking section. Yeah, but you do it on your channel, and I'll share those videos. Because I think there's a massive thirst for authentic cooking, and I think those videos would do really well, actually. And you could do them both in the long format and in the long form and the short videos, because you got 3 minutes. I mean, naturally, the short videos, you'd have to get the content a bit tighter, and edit some of it out, but certainly you could do that from the long format, and you could always send the videos to me and I'll edit them for you. I could find the time. But I do love the old process of making videos. And then Viking Martin Brown says, I'm too chicken to talk online. No, you shouldn't be. You mean you got great presence. You know, well, you know, you could always film the videos, and I'll do an audio overdub for you. So there's always that option, and I'll just describe what you're doing, and you just give me the information about what you're cooking that time. So I don't mind doing that for you, and send the video back with my audio dubbing on my voice, and we'll link it to my channel, we'll link it to your channel. But no, don't be too chicken about it, because you know, until you have a go, you know, you're bound to have a bit of fear, and feel like, oh, I don't want my voice on YouTube, you know. I'm a bit too, you know, chicken about it, but no, you'll be fine. You got great presence. You got a lot of knowledge, and you got a voice, and people would actually listen to that voice. So I'm certain, I'm 100 million% positive somehow we could sort something out. Whether it's me doing an overdub for you with my voice. I mean, with God's sake, I mean, I had a speech impediment when I was young, so I'm probably more nervous about making content and being on camera than what you are. And certainly the amount of times I've been ridiculed for my voice. But once I started making videos and appearing in the videos and talking, I realised that I was really funny, and I really enjoyed the whole process. So no, don't be afraid. Be brave, and I'm happy to help any way I can, because you know I love to share my knowledge, and you know I produce 10,000 plus videos now fundamentally. So you know I got to the point where you know I'm quite content with what I'm doing, and I'll fundamentally sit down and talk about anything. But I'm also trying to open up the channel to the much bigger subjects, because we need to talk about them for the longevity of humanity. But you know, I don't go too much into it with what I've already talked about it. But no, I think those videos where you're cooking would be great. And of course, you could always do videos as ASMR videos, and you cook something, and then you will just put music to it. Is another way you could also manage that with your content. So, and there's enough Viking Creative Commons music out there you could download to your phone, and then record a video on your phone and upload that audio music to those videos. I mean, the thing about adding music to videos, the trick is getting the sound level right, because it's not easy. I mean, I definitely failed on this whole thing of having the music too quiet or too loud. And then Martin says, I'm going to Shetland Island biking thing in January for a week. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely want to go and do that myself in the future. Definitely not next year, but maybe the year after I might go. And then I quite fancy driving around Scotland and going to some of the places in Scotland when I get a little camper van, which I can stay in, because it's more cost effective than flying and booking hotels all the time. But yeah, that's all what's going to happen on the channel in the future. You know, if I could find a good girlfriend to go with me, that'd be nice. You know, one that actually talks to me. But that's a whole entire subject. If I say any more, I'll get told off. And how much is it costing you to go to Shetland? I take it you're flying, and then imagine you got to book your hotel room as well. I mean, I was going to think about driving there myself, but again, it probably takes a little bit of research, and you probably just can't turn up willy-nilly. But yeah, that would be a wonderful thing to do. And then maybe, you know, getting a ferry and driving over to Norway would be quite cool. Driving around Norway. I could have Braggy's international tour, which I've always threatened I'd do one day. So that would be quite doable, because I'm definitely going to buy a big van and convert it. But then I want to have a nice classic car. I may get one of them. I quite fancy buying some kind of a drag car, something a bit not too sporty, but something a bit classic. You know, something with a steering wheel made out of a chain. Yeah. But definitely like the idea of a camper van, maybe like a modern van. but my neighbours have a van and they go away at the weekend, and it's got a bed in it that folds down, the sink and a cupboard and a cooker. So Belfast to Aberdeen, etc. And then you got to get from Aberdeen to Shetland, I'd imagine. £3,000 for flights and a house for rent. Well, that's not too bad. I mean, if you've got the money, you may as well enjoy yourself, because you can't take it with you. So, yeah, I mean, I'll probably like to drive there because make a little long journey out of it. And I imagine that'll probably be a bit cheaper than flying. But then again, £3,000 isn't a lot of money, really. I mean, what's that? A week's income or maybe a month. But I live in a different world to most people. And I'm quite prepared to to work abroad with what I'm looking at doing in the future. And that's for two as well, so that's not too bad. And let's face it, I mean, a house to rent for a week, that's going to cost you a few £100 at least, and it's Shetland, so it's going to be even more probably expensive than anywhere else normally. So no, that's all right. I mean, you got to get 2 planes, yeah, no, that's good. And then the Viking Martin Brown says, that's what she said, laughed out loud. I'm 57, I could fall down dead any time. Well, of course, I mean, I'm nearly 50, even though I'm pretending to be 38, because I look 38. But age is a number. It's about longevity is about looking after yourself, isn't it? And keeping fit and trying to eat well. You probably eat better than what I do because I'm a fussy eater. I like my fry up, so I've got to think about that. And I've put too much weight on myself because I've been eating too well and I've been having too many beers. I need to exercise more, but that's the way it goes. But life's too short not to live your life and not to enjoy it to the max and make the most of it. Anyway, I'm gonna in a minute head off to relax a bit. I've got some things to do on my phone. I'm in the middle of a conversation with ChatGPT. I'm not finished. I've got some answers I need to answer, questions to answer. I've not had any dinner yet. I had a sausage sandwich earlier for my lunch. That was quite nice. I did it in the air fryer for a change. I think frozen sausages in the air fryer are not good as sausages that are unfrozen. Oh, and then the I can't say that. The Viking, I call him the Viking. Oh God, it's been awake too long. The Viking Martin Brown says, Tesco is selling mead, I've been told. Oh, right, cool. I'm thinking about making some mead because I got a bit of honey in the house. Might say too much. So I might make 5 gallons of mead, which will probably last me a few years. And of course, I still got 4 gallons of my dad mead he made in 1978. It's very, very rich and very strong in alcohol. But a glass of that and you sleep like a log. And then Viking Martin Brown says, no worries, good night, I'm thinking of buying an air fryer. Well, I bought an air fryer by a company called U10, which is a German company. And they're normally about £160 to £200. And I managed to buy one for £50 because the box was slightly damaged. There's nothing wrong with the air fryer. But you can buy them, and it's a 3-stack one, so it's a big one. Enough you can get a chicken in it. And I must say, I'm really being impressed with the air fryer. I mean, I do chips in it. I've done cakes. I put a bit of beef in there, some steak. I put, sausages, bacon, eggs. So yeah, and then it's convenient because you put your stuff in 2 or 3 layers. So U10, UTEN, they're really good company from Germany. They make really good household objects. Like I've got a few things by U10. So I think generally you can probably pick one of them up for about £70. And it's a triple stack, so it's quite a big air fryer. but it's quite convenient because normally I would have used the oven. And what's the point of putting the oven on for 5 sausages? Or maybe I would have put the gas stove, hob on and fried them. So I just find it to be rather convenient for myself. I mean, I've done sausage rolls in there, cupcakes, an omelette. So I pretty much tried everything so far. I did fish fingers last night, and I must say they were so tasty. But yes, you got to turn the stuff over halfway through. That helps, so it's cooked evenly. But they was crispy. They was warm inside, and they weren't overdone. They weren't underdone. And I just put them in the air fryer. When I got back from dumpster diving, got some more free stuff and some free food, because I don't often pay for food when I can get it for free. So I don't buy bread. I don't buy eggs because I got 12 eggs at the moment, and they cost me absolutely nothing. I love that. I just need some cheese. I could crack the 4 eggs and grate some cheese on top and put that in my air fryer thing. So yeah, I got in. I got some fish fingers out. I put 6 in my air fryer. I went upstairs, had a shower. I came back down. They was on for about 12 minutes. They was thoroughly cooked. They was crispy. And then I got 5 slices of bread and butter, and I had fish finger sandwiches with some tomato sauce. And that's all I wanted because it was quick and it was convenient. And I love fish finger sandwiches. I mean, Teto Sagers used to love fish finger sandwiches. And the amount of times he used to tell me, "Oh, I'm cooking fish finger sandwiches." In fact, that time he came round my house and we had fish finger sandwiches together. So yeah, I mean, I'm a bit frugal with my money. I could have bought a Ninja one, but I think with a Ninja one, you're certainly paying for the name. And I've heard one or two of my friends have got Philips air fryers, and they say that they're really good, and they do have an extensive range. But if you're looking for an air fryer which is very cost effective for the price, then go to eBay and type in U10 air fryers, and then certainly buy a bigger one because you want one. I've not cooked a chicken in it yet, but you can get a chicken in it, and that's what I like. And I did a lamb roast the other day with roast potatoes, and and the roast potatoes were in a bit of butter, and I scuffed them up, and they're all fluffy. And by the gods, it was so tasty. And then normally halfway through, I'll put the potatoes on the top shelf and move the lamb roast down. And the lamb roast I did was lovely. I've done a beef roast. I've done parsnips. And it's just convenient because you don't have to keep checking on it. It's cheaper than your oven. And I must say, I'm really impressed. It goes up to 200 degrees. It's got a timer, tons of options. It has a rotary cage system so that when you put your chicken in, it rotates it round. It's got a little cage where you can put chips, and the chips get rotated round. And I was a bit skeptical about that, but I put my chips in. And I did it for the first time a few weeks back. And I normally like to just soak my chips in a bit of, fat beforehand. Normally a bit of lard. I'll just get some lard in the frying pan, just put the chips in so they get a good soaking. I'm not cooking the chips in the frying pan. I'm just getting the lard heated up. And then I put them in I let them soak in a bit of paper so there's no dripping fat. I put them in the little tumbling cage. And I must say, they're some of the best chips I've had in such a long time. And it's so much better than the oven, because oven chips are great, but when they don't work out, they're not so good. You always get some in the middle that are cooked and some of the edge that are overcooked. So this little cagey thing that rotated around, it was blissful. Oh, it's the best chips I've had in a long time. Nearly as good as chips from the chippy. So yeah, I really recommend an air fryer. And I was quite skeptical about buying one because I've been umming and ahhing. I've been thinking about it and debating it on should I buy one? Should I not buy one? Are they a waste of money? Should I not buy an air fryer? So I was looking online. I saw the U10 air fryer, and then I thought, £70, not bad. But then I saw one with a damaged box, and there's quite a few of them. I thought for £52, I thought, I'm gonna risk it. I'm so glad I did it. and it's really big. It's a good square foot, square, and yeah, it's a pretty damn amazing technology. And I know some of the Philips air fryers, they have a system at the bottom which does actually um, circulate the air a bit better. But as long as you turn what you're cooking over so it's evenly cooked, to come out marvellous. I mean, I've had steak and the steak comes out superb. And then when I cook steak in the air fryer with a bit of butter, I make sure I leave the fat for the next day. And then I put some chips on the same plate where I cooked the steak. And then when I cook the chips the next day, the chips are soaking up the fat from the beef. And oh, it makes your chips taste gorgeous. Oh, and it's just convenient. You can go and get some fish fingers out your freezer in 2 minutes, put them in the air fryer, go make a cup of tea, come back 12 minutes later, and your fish fingers are thoroughly cooked. And the taste is so yummy last night. And some days when I'm cooking, eating food, I just want something simplistic. I just want something that I can just not worry about. And yeah, so yeah, so maybe you want a bigger one, but certainly the U10 one I had, it's got 3 layers on a bottom shelf, so it's certainly enough room where you get steak on your top shelf, you get 4 bits of big steak, you'll get chips on your second shelf, you get some chicken on the third shelf and some black pudding, and so there's enough space for cooking. I would say certainly for 3 to 4 people in one of them. I mean, I did 2 shelves of food the other day, and I ended up with 2 big plates of food, and I was a bit greedy, but I was hungry, not ate for like all day, and I was starving. So certainly one of those that size, and I think it's about the biggest one you can get. I'm not seeing a bigger one, so certainly I recommend the one by U10. Very good company from Germany. They make fantastic household kitchen equipment. I got a sandwich maker by them. I've got a air circulator by U10. I've got a U10 sewing machine, which is fantastic. It really is. Such a lovely sewing machine. So ever since I bought one thing by U10, I've gone and looked for other things by them, and they're never broken. They've lasted. So Martin says, I need one that's able to cook for me, her, the cat, and 2 dogs. So you cook food for your cat and dogs. Oh, depends how much your cat and dogs eat. You mean, you might need to get 2 air fryers for that. And then we have a comment here from Sam Stapleton. So, hello, brother. How are you, Sam? I barely made it. Are you still alive? Let me just check. Do I have a pulse? I can't feel it. I think I'm dying and I'm now a zombie. Brains. Yes, and I got some brain spaghettis the other day, and I put them in the air fryer with the gravy, and I must say, oh, they was crispy, they was tasty, they was crunchy. And normally I do them in the oven, but they was so much better than the oven. It's ridiculously how good air fryers are. And then we have a comment here from the Viking Martin Brown. It says, no, I'm a zombie. And some laughing emojis, 5 of them. Well, yes. Or as the Vikings call them, the Ganger or the Draugr. And and Ganger, of course. Apla means above, and Ganger means walk. So it's the above walker, is the Norse translation for the undead. And then the Viking Martin Brown says, seen 28 years later on Monday. Was a good film. All right, don't give us any spoilers, but yeah, I'd definitely like to see that film. I see at the moment 28 days later and 28 months later, I think, is on Amazon, on Netflix. So the new movie, 28 years later, looks quite good. Does it have the original cast or is it a new cast? Then Martin says, too late, I said the zombie joke. Oh, yes. Then I started watching, what's that zombie TV series with the Z? I started watching that again the other day. I kind of got a bit bored of the other one. So I can't remember. Oh, God, my brain's going blank again. Oh, The Walking Dead. I got bored of that because it stopped being about The Walking Dead and got more about humans against humans, and it kind of changed the whole emphasis. And then when Negan killed off a few people, that kind of destroyed it to me, and I stopped watching it. And then Sam says, "Man, I've been waiting to see that as well. I like the storyline." Yeah, I've not been to the cinema for years, but there's lots of good films coming out. And then the Viking Martin Brown says, "I'm saying nothing." Yeah, I definitely seen the trailer for it in the distance when I was working on other things. But I'm always multitasking. I often watch TV, work on my phone, and doing something else at the same time. I've got a book on the go. I may have music playing, so some days I can multitask, and I've got too many things on the go. But certainly when I'm multitasking and I've got my TV and music on, it does quiet down my brain a bit. And then Martin says, "I'm watching Bluestone 42 on BBC iPlayer." Is that a TV show about the police? It sounds like Bluestone 42 sounds like a police program. I don't think I recall it. Like I said, I just watched the first 2 seasons of Tuzla King on Paramount Plus. I must say, really, really good that was. And then I'm watching Star Trek Strange New World Season 1. So I'm about to go and watch the next episode very shortly before I go to bed. Maybe have a cup of soup in bed with some bread. Could be nice. Simplistic. Yeah, that's the one thing I've not cooked in an air fryer is soup. I mean, can you cook soup in an air fryer? I don't know. I did try to make an apple crumble in an air fryer the other day. But stupidly, I chose the wrong sort of bowl. I put it in a glass decoration bowl and not a cooking bowl. And I came down thinking, oh, I can't wait to eat my strawberry apple crumble. And when I came down, the air fryer had blown up the glass dish. And I had to throw it all in the bin. I was gutted. So number one tip is when you cook something, make sure you use a cooking bowl and not a decoration bowl. So that's the most stupidest thing I've done recently. I've done some daft things in my time, and I was so gutted because I used Gemini to help me cook it. Because I was hungry, and I said, "Well, and I took a picture of what's in my fridge, and she came up with the conclusion. And I said, "Do you have any apples?" And I said, "Yes." "Well, why don't you do an apple strawberry crumble?" And I thought, great. So I got Gemini on video mode, and she helped me measure out. I know how to cook an apple crumble anyway. But yeah, so I put it in this glass dish. And I did realise that it probably wasn't the right dish, but I was tired. And I thought, oh, it'll do. It'll be okay. So when you're cooking in a glass dish, just make sure it's a cooking dish and not a decorational bowl. I was so gutted. So after that, I had a tin of peaches, which filled my hunger. But I was so looking forward to eating that strawberry apple crumble. Yeah, I've done that before. So and then Viking Martin Brown says, and Ghost US. No, Army Bomb Squad is so funny. Oh, it's Army Bomb Squad. Right, that looks quite funny. And then I was on about earlier in the video, I think you missed it, when I was talking about, I was out with some reenacting friends of mine who do World War II. And they was talking about some of the most strangest and funniest reasons why soldiers in World War II got arrested. And these have been recorded by the MPs. And that was on about a case where a bunch of soldiers got arrested and charged by the MPs for starting up a chicken brothel. So a brothel that was made out of chickens. I think you can imagine the rest. And they weren't like dead chickens; there was alive chickens. So it's like what the WTF. So that was an actual reason in World War II why a bunch of British soldiers got arrested by the MPs because they'd gone to a farm and set up a brothel made of chickens for other soldiers to use, and the less said the better, really. But that's just completely nuts and not right, is it? I mean, what the WTF were they thinking? I mean, why not just go and find some local women in the village and set up a proper brothel? But yeah, apparently that's a true story from World War II. I would love to see the actual paperwork of that and see what they actually wrote down, the MPs. Oh, then I was told another funny story about a Marine that got arrested. So he was working in an office and he wanted to make a phone call. And he says, well, what phone can I use? So one of these soldiers said, well, why don't you, and this could be a common urban myth or a common story in the army, I don't know, I didn't serve in the army. I wanted to, but I weren't allowed by my dad, and I kind of regret that. So he was in an office, in a military office, and he wanted to use the phone call to phone up like Birmingham or somewhere where his parents were. So somebody said, well, if you go to the back of the office in the corner, there's a phone in a booth, use that phone, and all the phone calls are free. So, there he is. He made a phone call and thought, oh, I got a phone, I may as well phone up a few friends. So he phoned up somebody in France, and then he phoned up some friends in Ireland, and then he spoke to some people in Scotland. Well, the next day he was doing his normal duties, and some MPs came and arrested him. And he said, what am I being arrested for? And he said, well, did you make some phone calls in that office the other day? And he said, yeah. I said, well, you used the nuclear hotline. So if you're going to use the phone in the army, make sure you don't use the nuclear hotline phone, which kind of lets people know there's a nuclear war happening. And then he ended up in the glass house for 3 months for punishment for that. But then ended up back in the army again because they didn't kick him out. Yes, and Martin said, number 1, make sure the oven is turned on. I've done that before. I've gone and made an apple crumble or pie and then, or cake, and I'll put it in the oven. And I got off, thinking, all right, oh no, come back in an hour. It'll be all cooked. Oh, not put the oven on. Oh, shit, But if you do that, make sure you have turned the oven on and you're not got the gas running out, or you're going to blow yourself up. And then Sam says, I'm going to do your javelin head forge out tomorrow. Well, cool. I need to catch up with your videos, but I never have enough time of the day to watch videos. But I will try to catch up with a few of them and have an afternoon watching your videos, Sam. And same with you, Martin. See what you've been doing on YouTube and catch up with that. Anyway, it's been 3.5 hours. I'm tired. And I want a cup of tea and to go and lie down for a bit. And so I'm going to probably go and say goodbye. And it's 12:15 at night. By the gods. But it's been a good live stream. It got a little bit quiet after an hour, and I thought, oh God, it's getting quiet. I'm going to have to go and end the live stream. But I'm glad I realised that I could catch up with the comments. And then Martin says, I was in the glass house for 2 hours for breaking my SLR rifle in half in 1985. Well, 2 hours is enough, isn't it, really? And if you don't know what the glass house is, Sam and folks, it's where if you're in the army, in the British Army, and you do something bad, you get sent there. And I had a friend of mine, and I can't remember his name, and he was an helmsman on a nuclear submarine, and he was driving the submarine in an harbour and crashed into an American frigate. Uh, and then he got breath tested, and he was an alcoholic, and they found he was 4 times over the limit. And he ended up doing, I think, 9 or 12 months in the glass house. So my number one tip, if you ever do end up driving and being a homesman of a nuclear submarine, is that it's best not to have a drink beforehand and be sober when driving the nuclear submarine. And of course, it caused an international incident because, let's face it, it's not every day a submarine. And it did get a bit hushed, and it wasn't in the mainstream media, thankfully. But he did end up serving a long time in the glass house for being over the limit as an homesman and crashing into a United States frigate in some harbour. I think it was in Scotland at the time, if I recall. And then he got kicked out of the army for that, which he probably, like the Navy, I mean, he got kicked out of the Navy after that. Not surprising. How do you put that on your CV? Oh, I did 4 years in the Navy until I crashed the nuclear submarine I was driving into a US frigate. So Martin says good night. So good night to you. I'll try to get back on tomorrow. Sorry, not done live streams the last few days. I've been too hot. It's been unbearable. Last few days over the weekend, it was too hot for my liking. I was just lying in bed sweating and trying to survive next to a fan because I just can't do too much heat. Perhaps I should have gone outside, and I do have a massive swimming pool on my lawn, but it collapsed the other week when I didn't set it up right. So now I've got another job to do to repair my swimming pool. So typical, isn't it, in my life? The only time when it gets really too hot in the UK, my swimming pool is out of action. I could have been swimming in that, bad time, if I get into the damn thing. So yes, that's just typical that. But yeah, we will catch up again, and I'll try to get on a live stream tomorrow night if I'm not too knackered, because I don't like filming when I'm tired, and I've got to have the energy. And I wasn't coming on tonight, but I said to Sam earlier that I'm doing a live stream. I like to honour my words because I think keeping to your word is important. And I really enjoyed tonight's live stream. And of course, watching these videos does help. And don't forget, go and do check out our merchandise. And if you did want to go and buy quite a bit of stuff, if you type in Northworthy793 as a coupon, you do get free postage across the world as well. If you spend over £70 or $75, which 3 or 4 items that will get you. And there are some very nice Anglo-Saxons Woof Woof Baby design t-shirts and Dave the Cat stuff. And I got to get back and make some more, but bear with me because there's only one of me and there's tons and tons of things to do. And then Martin said, I have a baby's bath full of ice. Well, I don't blame you, but I do have lots of ice lollies in my fridge, which I took out of a co-op waste bin last year when they threw out like 40 packets of them, and I got like 1,000 ice lollies for free. Win-win for me, but I couldn't keep all of them. So I had a lot of the syrups I put into drinks, and I had literally a whole freezer full of ice lollies, and I couldn't get nothing in my blooming freezer for months and months, and I still got too many ice lollies in there. But I've had a few in the last week because they're so refreshing when it's this whole warm, hot weather. And yeah, it's another successful day. And do check out today's long format video. It's a little bit of a different video, and it's the beginning of a series that I've started filming a while ago. And it's talking about my perspective when it comes to AI and how it's going to change the world. And it's a cunning plan I have. This I don't want to go into too much detail about, but I have a voice, and I think it's important that somebody like me with such insight when it comes to artificial intelligence, and it's going to change the world, because we often think about, oh, we're going to get AI and then we're going to get robots, but that's just the beginning, because we're going to get biological, AI-led human beings as well, and one of them as a girlfriend might be better than a human being, because they're not going to get jealous, they're not going to argue with you, and they might actually talk to me. But yeah,
So bye-bye, good night. Because I'm not careful, I'll carry on talking, and I'll do what I do in my videos, and I'll telegraph the end of the video, but still be there 5 minutes later. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully. So night, sweet dreams, and I love you all. I love you guys to bits because you're fantastic. So good night, bye. When are you going? I'm going. I'm gone. I'm going. I'm gone. No, not that. No, press the button. There we go. Yay, another